Welcome to Laughing Monkey. Davy Vain, welcome back, man. How are you?
I'm good. Good to see you again.
Good to catch up. You've been busy. You've been busy. And last time we spoke, I your album had come out. It wasn't totally out on like on iTunes and stuff. I had the CD you sent me, and I've had time to enjoy it. And I think some fans were like, "Why is it not out there? Why can't we see it?" Now it's actually
Right.
made it out there. So maybe that's a good topic to start with. Actually, the process of it getting out there on iTunes and stuff, was it
Well,
something
it's
you had to
like
work on or what?
we purposely did it that way. And a lot of people go, oh man, these guys don't know what they're doing. This is the 21st century. I want to be able to stream it right now. This is bullshit, stuff like that. But we just really had to try to, move some units just because, the whole reason we're even selling stuff
Yeah.
is to just maintain our facility. We have this huge facility we've had for like years now, almost 30 years. It's got like a huge, it's a huge giant warehouse
Yeah.
studio, with a
That's cool.
control room, vintage equipment, all our stuff. We practiced there since, you know, the late 90s,
Oh,
So,
wow.
and it's just like, and we had the same owner for years, but some big corporation bought the entire building because there's other buildings in there. And
Yeah.
about a year and a half ago or so, they like tripled the rent, So we had a
Oh,
lease that was already pretty expensive. And just to maintain electricity and all the equipment, and no one ever has to pay for rehearsal. And we just are really, comfortable there. We've done so many records there. So we have to have some kind of other stream to maintain
yeah.
having that, because that's what we kind of are into more than anything now, is recording and creating,
Mhm.
and jamming. You know what I mean? It's just like more than just like, let's try to book a 50 show tour or something like that. Like, even though it'd be fun in some ways, it would just take so much effort on everybody's part to do that, that we would just not, because we already aren't there every day, obviously, like we were when we were,
Well, no, you have
back in
other
the
things
day.
going on. You have other work, family commitments, other financial commitments to take care of. You can't just. It's not the
Exactly.
same.
So, but we try to do at least always get together like once a week, and then we
That's still
just
good.
record everything on our phones. And mostly we're just working on new songs that I've written, just new stuff and arranging
Right.
them, jamming on them, trying stuff. And then we're just so basically when and so we're really always making a record. It's just different than going into the, like we did in the old days, where the whole band goes in and does some pre-production. So we're always just record, and then, okay, let's record them. Let's record this one. Sometimes we'll just record one song. Sometimes we'll record two or three songs, and we'll just, keep that process going. And then there'll be a new one and a new one, and the songs just kind of pile up. And then I have to finish them, obviously, the rest of them, the vocals and the lyrics and stuff like
Well,
that. So that's kind of the creative process, and other people will come and join in on some of it. So, so when we got this record, there was so much effort and work put into it for like years, basically.
mhm.
We tried to do everything ourselves. I don't really like mixing my own stuff. I'm already the engineer, the songwriter. I'm playing on it, creating stuff. Now I'm mixing it, like if I mix somebody else's stuff, I mean, I've even done mixes for like Sammy Hagar and Neil Schon, you know what I mean? Under a
Yeah.
pretty high pressure pro people, and they liked it, so I'm a good mixer, but I'm just not, and I've mixed a ton of other records for other bands. And it's like, I can just make decisions quickly and know but it's my own stuff. I mean, I'll be in there. It'll never end. I'll go in some days and just listen to it. And I go, okay, I've got to finish the song. And I'll just be running it. Let me hear it again. I'm running it. Let me hear it again, running it. And then I'll back like an hour listening to it. I'll just go, I got to leave. I just can't, I'm like almost like, petrified. I just don't want to touch anything, and I don't want to move anything. And it's like some of the songs were on the console for so long on the last record. Maybe I do one tweak, write solo something, go, I don't know, should I do
Really.
that? The decision making process doesn't work really the same way when you're doing your own thing. You know what I mean? It's just like, and then I do a mix and send it to a couple people. And they go, oh, that's cool. Or somebody in the band would go, oh, what about that? What about this? And it's like, it's really hard. So when we finally did all this work, and then our manager in Germany, has a vinyl facility at that time. So we're printing all this vinyl, doing I did hire a really top mastering guy because that's one thing I wanted the final guy to kind of
Very
oversee.
important to have a good master for vinyl. Otherwise, it's like wasting money. You just get a
Master
muddy
and
album.
also the CDs too, everything. And then I go, hey, how's it sounding? What do you? And he's like, it's really good. And I go, let me send you like 3 different mixes. And he was just like, everybody that's doing the same thing you're doing are my hardest clients. You're the
Really.
guys that are doing everything from the ground up, and it's really tough. But so then we got it mastered, and we had all this time, effort, and you don't really get paid by the hour for creating something, but it's still there. We're talking like massive amount of work coming in there, and just to release it online, just like
Oh yeah.
basically for pennies, we would never be able to do it again.
Recoup that.
We'd actually then it would almost really be a hobby. You know what I mean? And it's
And,
like,
and and thank you for sharing that. So I missed up on you. I want to say, yeah, thanks for sharing because I kind of get the backage because you're not the only artist that does that. And this is where we pick up the other part because there is a reason why artists do it. They're not out for anything. It's paid for what the time they put in. Try to at least break even so you can make more albums. But then there's a certain point you've done, once you feel you've did some recouping, you try to find a balance, I think, right? Where some of the fans can stream it that haven't bought the vinyl. Is that what you did
what's
before
that?
you released it? So you kind of you finally released it now because you waited long enough where you can recoup.
Yeah, we
Try to find a
decided to
balance of it,
just,
really.
yeah, we have to kind of at least try to sell some of it. And that's also a lot of work and a process too, because it's not like we have another company doing it. We have like somebody in Europe doing it, then we're doing it ourselves on this end. And that's like packaging and printing labels and sending stuff out with our own label. And it's like, and that's a massive amount of work too. And then getting complaints and calls if someone didn't get something, or, you know what I mean? It's just like a whole other little, business, you know what I mean? That takes a lot of attention, and, and shipping supplies and just all of this kind of stuff. But it's worth it at the end of the day to be able to maintain it. I mean, I think if we came to the point where we didn't have the place that our studio anymore,
Hmm.
and kind of how we've been used to doing everything for years, the whole thing would probably just kind of end, you know what I mean? So most of the stuff we do now is to just maintain,
I mean, yeah.
having this amazing facility, where we have like, we have all our gear from the 80s still there in road cases, and stuff, you know what I mean? So it's just like, but a lot of people did get kind of upset, and it was kind of interesting to hear it. And some people were going, you know, some people got so angry that it kind of surprised me in a way, because it's like we're not really the bad guys. The bad guys are the streaming companies, really. But
Right.
I kind of could understand. But if you don't want to do it, then just don't buy it. But then some people were going, you know what? I can't believe that it's not on streaming right now. I heard it's great, but I'm never going to buy it or listen to it just out of principle, somebody said. So I'm like, what's the
They listen to
principle?
it. I'll bet you. I bet you they listen to it.
But it kind of made
I
me
know.
think like, wow, okay, you're sticking to your principles. I want my music for free. And it's just like, and there's nothing wrong with that either. And that's how the music business is turning into. Now it's turning into like, it hurts kind of more the artists on our level. If you're a gigantic artist releasing music, it's just like giving it to MTV. You're giving
Right.
it to Spotify and all these places, and everybody listens to it, and it's free. And then you make money by going on
And
making
tour.
gigantic. People will spend like $1,000 to go see a band, but they don't want to spend. And it's kind of funny too, because people were really complaining about iTunes, which was 99 cents per song.
Right.
And it was like, and some of the country artists were saying, hey, I wouldn't mind that if I could buy a house. The last time it was 99 cents a song, it was in the 60s, but houses don't cost the same in the 60s. Now everybody's just dreaming that they can, sell a thing for $1, you know what I mean? A song for $1. But, it's not all about money. But if you don't think about it, you can't maintain, like all the
No.
expenses of having like a complete facility somewhere. If you're Metallic or something like that, it's not a big deal. But, for us, it's like, it's really expensive leases and,
Well, I'm
preparers.
surprised you guys can do that. I mean, it's still very expensive. I mean, and the being a cottage industry, which is most artists like you do everything yourself, or turnkeys, what they like to call it.
Yeah.
It's very expensive and time consuming, and with very little profit. And to do all that and then have the fans, and that's what I said. I saw a comment. I was looking at something before we talked today or something, and it came up as we was talking about like it was an old comment came about streaming. I don't know what was on it. Maybe I was pulling up the video for you or something. I don't know what came up. It made me think about it. I wanted to bring the topic up because I knew what you were doing when you did it. Because when the album first came out and I heard it last year, I was like, oh, I thought I heard one single, but the album's out. Is it not streaming? I get where it's confusing for fans. I just think the fans didn't understand why. And I think if everybody knows why and how it's supporting the band, you support the band. You want to understand this. But if
Yeah.
they just think it's you're holding it back or it's not because of whatever reason,
Or
it's
some
probably
people,
harder to
yeah,
digest. Now maybe that
yeah,
they
and some
understand the
people,
process that it keeps
I'm
you
not
afloat.
sure. I think the super fans wanted to just have the CD itself too. You know what I mean? And maybe, and then I heard some other bands are starting to do that now too,
Yeah, they
because
are. It's
everybody used
not
to
it's not
go right to
uncommon.
streaming. And
Mhm.
then it's just like, and then some people thought there's no way it would make any difference on how many records we sold. But that's not true because some other people have done tests on it. And
Yeah.
if everybody can stream it, they just already got it. But I don't know. We're not like some masterminds thinking, how can we do this? We just thought we had so many other people involved, the people that helped us in Germany print all this stuff up in Europe and, doing all this vinyl stuff. And, it's not like we can just give it all away. It's just
It's
like
not
we
the end of the
have this.
world though either. We've heard it now. I mean, it's just a little bit a smaller time to help pay people to help support the band.
Yeah.
If people can't understand that, you're not going to please them then. I mean, it's how the world works,
And we're
you
not
know?
mad at anybody about it.
No, no,
I
no,
don't
no,
really
no.
care. But I don't have a Spotify subscription and I'm on Spotify. I have to call one of my managers to check, hey, what's up? Is that on Spotify? And they
I'm
go,
not on it either. I don't pay for it either. And
I
I'm
just
on
don't
my
like it
show's on it.
because
I
I
don't even
don't
pay
want to
attention.
support it. I don't want to
Yeah.
support it, even though I know a lot of people are on there and the convenience of it's great and, all that stuff. So, it's just like,
I do
and
iTunes.
since we've been releasing these vinyls and doing all the stuff that we're doing on the side, we've been able to have it now we're still there, we're still right
Yeah.
now. And having I don't know if I could, I don't know if I could really make music like in a bedroom, you know what I mean? I'm just so used to doing it the way I do it now, even though it's sort of like that because I do so much stuff myself. And have a large format recording console. It used to be owned by
Right.
Blondie, and just having control room and just everything that's sort of like the older professional way. I'm still using computers and stuff too at the same time, but you know I guess I'd have to. But I think just for Vain itself and the way we do things, we just like doing it that way. You know what I mean? Just
Well, the other certain energy to the band. I mean, the albums always sound live. We actually talked about the new album too. That obviously, I don't think to me, I would have seen more press on it. You know, it's got a very live feeling. I mean, your voice is so strong. I mean, it doesn't sound any different, like
no
literally any
thing.
different. Like that's insane to me. There's something so emotional in your voice. Like, I mean, you told obviously you know how to write a song. You know what a good Vain song is and a good melody. There's certain notes that you hit that I think there's all of us fans where there's certain emotions that you feel. Just something about it. I think you hear those notes a lot. Some of the fan favorite songs. There's certain notes you hit. They're just very
It's funny.
emotional.
I was just got an interview with somebody else. They go, "There's certain notes you hit that other singers think are wrong or something." And I go, "Okay." It was sort of like I
Uh-oh.
don't really know what they meant. Like
I
I
don't know.
guess
Yeah.
I thought it's right to me. It's funny. I guess there is certain licks. I was just playing a song for
I
that
don't
I'm
think
working on
wrong
right.
is a right word, but
Yeah, I know. I
okay.
did. I just kind of went, if singing that is wrong, I don't want to be right.
Right,
But
right.
one of the guys that I work with a lot, I think I mentioned on the last interview, Jeff Matei, um, is a producer too, and he lives in a different town though, and he hasn't come get out quite as much to the studio. But I play him stuff, and I was just playing him a track I just did, and then he's like, "Oh, you always go down on that. I love how you do that." And it was just like he has analyzed all of my ways I do things, and I don't really think about them either, just like them or I don't. But we're but yeah. So right now we're since we're still pounding away, we've just already got a bunch of tracks down right now. Just to,
How many things you have like rough demos recorded that you haven't used? Like a ton?
um, there's not that many. Yeah, there's probably like 3 or 4 um, that are left over from different things. One's an old Vain song that we redid, but it got left off. But it's all done pretty much. and so we'll probably end up using that one for the new record. And then we redid another song that a lot of people like, but we didn't finish it. But now we've added some new stuff to it, and we'll see if we end up using that. And then probably 8 brand new things that are that
Okay.
are almost
New.
that are new, that we recorded like a lot of the basics, and I've already sang on probably,
Because
you know,
you do,
finishing up. I just have to mix them now. I'm trying to do it. I'm going to do it a little different this time and kind of do the Prince method, where once you're working on a song, you just mix it and then just move on.
okay.
Where the normal way is kind of when everything's done and you just go into the mixing process because you've got all your stuff set up, especially if you're
Right.
doing it with an analog board like I am. It's, just setting everything up. It's not like on a computer where you just recall everything every time. So,
Get the
but
grease pencil out, right?
what's that?
Get your grease pencil out.
Yeah, exactly. But that's why you don't have to do it quite as much if you're just kind of rolling through a bunch of songs. But it makes it a little harder too, since there's so many different sessions. It's usually, like No Respect or something. It's just one recording session. We're in there at once. Everybody's recording all the songs, and then when you go to mix them, when you put your drums up, it's basically the same thing. It's just like we'll go put a song up, and there may be a batch of 2 or 3 from one recording session, but then it's even though it's the same studio and the same stuff, it still has different sounds and tones, but also kind of keeps all the songs sounding fresh and kind of a little bit different. So I don't know the exact number, but I think there's something like I think we have like 13 songs right now that could all be on a next record. So out of that, we'll figure it out. I'm just kind of trying to finish the stuff up, and I'm almost done with this one that I've really spent a lot of time on. And speaking of having your own studio too, I was right in the middle of doing a vocal, and all of a sudden I hear something just going, you know what I mean? And I'm just like, oh my God, I hope that's not my mic, because I do pretty much all my vocals on a vintage U47, which is like one of the best microphones ever made, And this one just has such an amazing sound. It's like, the same one we use like on Christina Aguilera when I was working on that session. And Linda Perry did a bunch of her vocals for the demos of all her big hit songs when she was doing them at my studio.
Oh, wow.
So, and I go, oh my God, is this the mic? And I was really freaked out, but it ended up being another mic pre that's really, vintage too. So, I haven't even had a chance to check it out. Might just be a switch or something, but that's the kind of stuff when you're dealing with that kind of stuff, getting that repaired and stuff like that is just,
Expensive.
You got to go to somebody that really knows what they're doing and stuff too. So just to maintain all that stuff is another kind of the job of having your own facility and all that kind of stuff. But
because you're recording, right? And you go do other recording for the artists, right? Still.
What's that?
You're recording other artists still too, right?
Yeah, not as much as I used to though, but we are. And then there's some other people that work there too that are doing stuff. They're recording different, mixing other things and kind of doing conglomeration of things, in there too. So we're trying to, another engineer, and he's actually been working on a couple of the tracks with us too, because I was doing so much engineering, and I play guitar usually always when we're doing the basics now too. So it's just you have a guitar on, you're trying to get some mix. Hey, can you hear what's going on? Okay, let's play, because we do everything completely. We have a whole new system how we record. We don't even wear headphones anymore. We just think we take all the headphones off. We're just in the big tracking room, and then I have the PA on, and it's just like, because we have a PA in there too. And once in a while I'll go there and just do a little, a little piece of the verse. And if you list soul, the drum mic is something you might be able to hear a squeak of it. But some of the greatest records ever, they got bleed all over everything, so we don't care. But the advantage to that is all the people aren't in there just listening and taking their headphones off and wires. We just go sit down and we jam it out, and then we just get up and go walk in and listen to it. There's no, and everybody can hear how they're, and Ash especially just loves recording that way, and so does my drummer, and it's just they can just vibe off of it.
We get to get, well, that really is a live sound. But
yeah,
really
and then we'll split the vocal too. We'll split it. Right now we're splitting it to record it too, And that way I've got a little, reference track live off the floor too. So I can kind of hear what's going on, and check it out later. And so we've had this other guy, Vadim Camby, and he's doing, he's been, a few of the tracks he's been there too, just so I can just concentrate on playing and stuff. And, so that's kind of our system of how we do it. So basically, Eddie Trunk always, and then if we have to get ready for a show, it kind of disrupts that entire process. That's a very slow process, actually, really, because if we get together, then we work on a song, then like 6 days later, we get together again, then everybody's taking their phones out to remember it.
I remember those, yeah.
Yeah, or have 2 or 3 going at the same time, and I'll start playing a song, and I'll go, okay, let's work on this one. And what's that again? And I go, that's the one we've been working on for like a month, but we had to take a month off because someone had to do stuff. So then when we get ready to go play, we have to get in a completely different mindset, because during that period of time, I probably didn't really sing that much. I'm just singing a little bit. It's just like, because I'm playing guitar and I'll go up to the mic and kind of go, oh, but I'm not really singing like I do live, or like I would on No Respect. You know what I mean? And so then it's like, oh, okay, we got a gig, and it's, the Monsters Rock Cruise. Now we got to get a whole set down.
Oh, wow. So you're not even singing between things? You have to warm up before you do shows at this point?
I have to kind of get completely ready. It doesn't take that long, but I have to build up to that whole other thing, because I'm maybe only doing scratch tracks, or maybe I'm singing in the studio. Sitting in the studio is much easier. You know what I mean? You're sitting there.
Oh, yeah, but your voice is so strong live now. And I've heard some footage of you live, and hearing, the albums and consistency. I'm like, I always thought, that you were still singing a lot more to keep it that strong.
I think it's maybe, you know what? I think it's because I take the breaks. That's why, because I don't really have anybody to talk to about any of this stuff, because I just had lessons so long ago, and I only had a few lessons. So, and the guy gave me scales, and he said, hey, you got to breathe, and I go, okay, that's really important. Breathing.
Super important. Breathing. Important. I can't go a day without breathing, in fact.
I've got it down. Like, I take little breaths in between. Like, I can squeeze it in. I'm like, once in a while, it depends if the song tempo of the song is a little fast or harder. But even like on No Respect, when I go ahead and use me, I could get a breath right there before I go, when it comes, you know what I mean? It's just like, because that's really high, and usually a little higher than I sing now, because I've kind of got a little bit lower register in some things these days that I like the way that sounds. But but that vocal teacher, showed me some stuff, because he and Linda Perry went to him too. He was a San Francisco guy. He was really cool. So he showed me, gave me a little tape with scales for my scales, and I'd warm up on that. In fact, I still have that tape to this day. And it's really funny. It's the exact same tape that I had in the 80s. And I just transferred to Pro Tools, and it's called Scale Group 3. But on that tape, somebody hit record one time when we were warming up. I don't know if it was me. And it's a backstage, all this noise and stuff going on. And every time when I put it on Pro Tools, I turned it down a little because it's really loud. And every time I get ready for a show, it's like for about 30 seconds, I transport back to 1986, because I'm going like, la, da, 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 and you hear these notes going, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden you hear it go, and you hear it go, and you hear all these people talking, and people playing guitars unplugged, clink, 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 yeah. And all of a sudden it goes, and then you hear somebody goes, oh shit, and it's like me, and then it's like goes back to da 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 da, and then after that you hear it stop again, and this time you hear all these people, oh yeah, fuck yeah, drinking and blink, 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 and somebody goes, can everybody, you hear some Brody guy go, will everybody unauthorized please leave the dressing room so the band can get ready for their show? And then I was just fucking around, and then you hear me going, yeah, the band's got to get ready for their shitty show. And then all of a sudden you hear it go back to, and it's the stupidest thing ever. But and sometimes I listen to it and I go, is that Delana, or is that Jamie? I mean, is that Danny West? I was like, who's going clink, 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 you know what I mean? And then it's just like, it's really funny. And a couple of times I decided to just, erase that so I don't have to hear it. But there's something nostalgic about it. So when it comes on, I just always have to smile that it's just like a little time machine tape. But anyway, this guy was really cool, and he knew a lot about, you know, that singing is very, you know, the techniques of singing and being a singer can be very complicated, you know, especially if you want to train with all this crazy training and
Hmm.
sing like Mariah Carey and all that stuff. But he thought, you know, he wanted to come. So I kind of went to maybe like 4 or 5 times, you know, and then he goes, "Hey, I want to come to your practice now. You know, I want to come down to your practice and see, you know, what you got going on." I'm like, "Okay." So he came down to our practice, and that's when we were really starting to get good, right? So, and he watched me, and then he just said, "Hey, you know what? I don't think you should do any more lessons." And I go, "Really?" And he goes, "Because you already kind of know what you're doing." He goes, "You're not doing anything to hurt yourself. And that's the main thing. I'm watching you, but you have your own sound and you're still with your own riffs and you're
Hmm.
just kind of doing it naturally. And I don't want to give you too many weird things to change that. You're just doing it, and so, and he goes, because you have your own style and your own sound, and that's more important than all the technique ever. You know, you just have your own flavor or whatever. So I was kind of like, oh, okay, so and so that was a long time ago. So I've never had any vocal training or anything. In fact, I just right before the boat cruise, I actually I text Eric Martin because we're buddies, and we always do this thing once a year of going to this big Santa Rosa where we're all from,
Hmm.
rock and roll. We did it last year. We have a big dinner, and Paul Taylor's there from Winger, and
Winger, yeah.
and just all these other people that we all know back in the day. And we were supposed to go to that, but I missed it, and a lot of people couldn't go to the next one. But then my wife had the worst cold ever. She was coughing and sneezing, and she could barely talk in the laryngitis. I'm like, oh my god, this fucking sucks. And I had a little bit of a cold, and I was like, I wonder what the best stuff. And I go, hey, you know what? Maybe Eric has a tip for me, And I go, hey man, I think I'm going to be sick. You're the only person I know that's singing like is for years, and I don't know anybody else. It's just, what do you think about this? And he goes, oh, do this. And, I don't know, man. And he's just like, try that. Maybe that works. I know it does suck. And he goes, oh yeah, dick move, not showing up for the dinner. and, and so, but I did have a guy that I was producing about a year ago, and he came in with a vocal teacher, and she's a local woman, and she's really has all these tricks and stuff. And it was kind of interesting because he's sort of an intermediate singer, and switched from being a rapper. And so he was singing, and then he'd do something, and then she would say, oh, you know what, that word, you can't say that word that way because that always will have that vowel and stuff that I never even think about. You know what I mean? I can just
Right,
tell
right.
if it's bad, but I don't know technically. You should never do an ooh when you're doing an ah. I mean, I don't like, sometimes knowing too much is bad, I think. But so I go, wow, she's really cool and has this great personality, right? So once in a while, I'll text her and go, hey, I'm thinking of doing this, and I was going to change to this, and blah blah blah. And then she goes, I just took a big break. She goes, oh my god, it's so good that you're taking these breaks. And I never had anybody tell me that before. That was like a teacher. She goes, I try to talk some of my students into doing it, but they just don't want to do it. So
Oh,
I'm not sure if it's good, but it definitely does suck because it takes me a couple of practices to start feeling good. I try to
yeah.
be, so when we're getting ready to do the no respect stuff, some of it's pretty hard, and it's also songs I sang in my 20s, and wrote.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, you're hitting them still, and it doesn't sound like it's different at all. I mean,
Dude, this sucks
even
because
the
it's
live
so
stuff.
funny because I got so ready for the boat cruise. I was the best warmed up that I've been in years because we were doing because I go, okay, right now I had a little list. I'm like, a pitch count. The first
Right.
practice, I go, I'm on a pitch count right now. I'm not doing more than 10 songs right now. And everybody's okay. So make it good. Which ones do we need to work on? And so, and some of the hard ones are like watching you and no respect, because no respect is like, go ahead. It's so high, you know
Oh,
what I
it's
mean?
way up there. Yeah.
And had the really high choruses, and watching you has so high, and there's never time to take breaths and stuff. And so I got to kind of warm up to those. And then there's one song called Planets Turning. We recorded it a couple
Hmm.
times. I don't know if you know that one. That one's
Yep.
really hard.
Yeah, your
And
second and third
so
album too, right? Yeah.
yeah, we did it on All Those Strangers, but since All Those Strangers we didn't think was ever going to be heard, we did it again because that's the song we were doing a video for. before Island kind of folded. And a
Yeah.
lot of people, we thought, we were even playing it for like our friends in Seattle bands and stuff. They're going, God, that song's so cool. You guys got to put that out first. And so we were doing that. I go, look, I really wanted to do it. And the first couple tracks, I go, oh my God, it's so high, and then somebody was suggesting, well, why don't we just, you lowered a little bit. And, we were figuring out a, harmony that would be a little lower. And then I go, oh yeah, okay. And then I just kept kind of practicing and practicing. All of a sudden my voice just boom, it was just back to like feeling better than ever. And then I was like, oh my God, this is so killer. I can't wait to get on the cruise and do. And then we had 3 shows we were going to do, because that's a real singing kind of song, like some of the other, and there's so many singers totally. And people that are known singers and stuff on the boat. And that has all those, no, I said no, oh no, these really powerful things that I usually don't do. So I was like, I can't wait to do that song. So we did the first show. And so we had a different set every time. The last show, we were going to do that. And that was going to be, and then all of a sudden during the show, there was a bunch of technical difficulties and we were outside. It was the last night. And then they were going, that's it. And I was like, what? And they go, one more song. You got to stop. And then we're like, oh, what the hell? And then I had the choice if you do Planets Turning or Beat the Bullet. And I was just like, I want to do Planets Turning so bad. But, so it was just like, so I was.
There would have been a mutiny on the boat if you didn't do Beat the Bullet. They would have,
Yeah, because
marched you off the plane.
Yeah, we had one first show where we didn't do it because everything was just going wrong. There was a lot of, bad technical stuff that was kind of a drag. I'm actually kind of working on that and going to maybe start bringing my own stuff. I bring a lot of my own stuff anyway, but even my own little mixer for my in-ears and stuff, just to, negate that. But, so, and usually, so that's kind of how we do it. But then when we're doing all of that, of course, then all this other stuff just goes by the wayside, Then when we get back from a gig, then everybody's kind of doing their own thing again. And then when we get back, it kind of slows the process down. And that's kind of why the records have been so long in between too, I think, It's just like, so, and then sometimes I think, well, maybe I shouldn't have taken those break like that. It's not like I don't sing at all, but I don't sing like 12
right.
old Vain songs.
Well, the process is different though for everybody. I know some artists will say, all right, I got a gig coming up. Obviously talk to all different types of styles, but then I got a gig coming up in next month, and every day for 30 days they will sing the entire set that they're going to do for every day for 30 days to get ready for it. Some artists will take a break. Some artists are always just performing. You know what I'm saying? There's no right way or wrong way. Some people go on stage, they don't warm up at all, and they do like this heavy thrash stuff. I'm like, I can't even imagine how you can do that.
Yeah, some people can do that.
It's all different voices. Dio was known for doing that.
I know, that's what I've heard. Eddie Trunk told me that. I used to not warm up at practice ever, and only before shows. But now I'm kind of always warm up. I didn't.
I think I would be terrified to always never warm up. Like, what if my voice cracks from out there? I want to make sure. Like, I think psychologically,
some people just are kind of always warmed up. And some people can do a lot of shit. And I know.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Drink and smoke weed and go out and stuff like that. You got to be careful. I almost had my voice blow out at the first show on the cruise because I was sounding so strong and so good, but there was something wrong with the monitoring system. And we were the first day. So the whole stage just sounded like everything's going like these subwoofers. And I couldn't hear anything. I couldn't hear myself at all. And every time I was telling the guy, turn me up, it was just like going. And so I just like, you have to use your body a lot when you sing, but instead of, I was just extra, just like, and it's just like, all of a sudden it was really wearing me down, and then all of a sudden I thought, okay, this sucks. My voice, I think I'm going to blow my voice out, but I couldn't just stop singing. I tried everything to make it better, but it was just not working. Then I found out later from Jamie St. James from Black and Blue. He goes, oh, you had it all fucked up with distortion. You're lucky. I had nothing for 4 songs. So there was something around, they were just figuring stuff out because they're throwing all these stages up everywhere, And so then it just, all of a sudden, it just kind of didn't do it. It either could have gone south or, just kind of bounced back in, So I don't know, it's always.
Is it different out there? Like singing out in the ocean? I never actually thought about that with the salty air and everything and the sound. Because
a lot of people,
if you're singing outside,
their voices
goes
get dried out. And there's AC everywhere because it's hot. a lot of people got this thing, where they got like something in their throat. It wasn't just that; it was just that, they didn't have all their in-ear systems weren't working on some of the
Hmm.
stages. They're because everything's turning over. It's like 10 festivals.
Yeah.
They just make a whole stage up, and there's just something going on where the subs are too loud. We're not going to do that tomorrow. Because it's not really a venue. It's like the first play plays the atrium, and people are looking down at you. It's like the second floor is this gigantic opening, and people can look down on you. The sound's just so
That sounds
so
like a nightmare to balance. Be the mixer. It just sounds like
yeah.
a nightmare. Like you,
And they have the kick drum, that I always make fun of them. It's just like they're sitting there just going, my kick drum's going
yeah.
to be amazing. And then they go, oh, that's right. There's somebody singing. You don't know how many shows I've gone out there and just gone, okay, the opening song, I'm just pumped up. I'm going to go for it. And people go, oh, I didn't hear you for a couple songs. You know what I mean? It's like,
Oh,
because the mixer was like, listen to my drums. Oh yeah, there's some guy running around singing. I'm like, oh yeah, you know what I mean? So, it's stuff that, you know, I just talk about it now because people are kind of more interested in that side of it. It's the show business stuff that you're not really supposed to talk about and bitch about.
I think it's fair
But
to
it
talk
is
about. I think
true. It does
it's
affect
important.
a lot of artists, and it's
Hmm.
it's drag because let's say you don't sound good, maybe people just think maybe you suck or something that night,
Well,
but you
that's the
really
whole
were
point.
you're
You
going
know.
over all this shit. That's the one thing about in-ears too. They do make it easier to hear yourself, and they could save I think they lengthen a lot of people's careers because you can really hear yourself well, and
Hmm.
you're not moving around to these dead spots on stage. But the bad thing about it is if there's something going wrong with them, it's really fries your ears. And the regular wedges that are working are usually not dialed in very well because people don't really take that much time to dial those in because they've got the in ear. So it's kind of a supportive thing then. So then if you've got to just depend on those, it's usually they usually sound like this. So it depends with your style. If you're like, hey, little sister, like Billy
Right.
Idol. In the next life, I'm
Yeah.
going to write all my songs like that. You know what I mean? It's like you could kind of, I can hear myself fine. You know what I mean? But if you're trying to sing all this, yeah, this piercing kind of thing, you're really listening for this little, the point of that note.
Point.
So you don't want to hear all this fat stuff to go along with it. And that's what I try to teach other singers too, like that are beginning. I've kind of got a little bit more as an educator over the years because I produced a lot of younger people,
Hmm.
over the years that don't really have, and some of the new artists don't really have a lot of experience yet performing. They've really just gone right to recording because everybody can record now. And this person, her name is Ray the Mile, got this huge record deal
Yeah.
because she just did a song on the internet with some people in her school. She was at the Brit School of Music and she has this really cool voice. And then she ended up working with my manager. She just happened to be in San Francisco for a couple of days because my manager was living there at the time. And then she goes, "Oh, hey," and she was going to go to LA to work with some hip hop people and some R&B, let's get some other
Yeah.
songs going. And she goes, "Hey, do you want to record with my friend Davey? He's more of a rock person, but he's really good at recording vocals." And he recorded, he worked on the Christina Aguilera album and a song with Linda Perry and blah blah blah. So she's like, "Oh, yeah, that'd be fun." And for some reason, we really just hit it off, even though we're in the completely different worlds. And so she would sing something, and I go, "Hey, you know what? Maybe you should try that." She goes, "Well, what would you do?" And I go, "I would kind of go. She goes, "Oh, I like that. Okay." And I got this really good vocal sound for it. Then she went and worked with some other people, and maybe they were better at, the modern music kind of thing, but they weren't really capturing her voice like I was. So I ended up getting to do this whole record with her and a bunch of other stuff. And the
Oh, very
A&R
cool.
people didn't even know that she was working with like a rock guy. So they eventually found out because it's funny. They were at this big meeting in New York having dinner with a bunch of people. And they
Yeah.
go, "Oh, who's producing it with you?" And this friend of mine, Jeff Matei, was doing some stuff with me too. And his name's Jeff and I'm Davey, right? So then they just go, "Oh, this producer named Dage." It's like, because they didn't want to get in trouble, like this guy looking me up and go, "Who the fuck is this guy? Why are we paying him to do a record with you?" It was actually kind of funny. Like most people would think it wouldn't be true. Then it turned out that they just said, "Oh, okay, that's great." But I was getting all these emails, "Hey, Dage," I'm just like, this is like, I didn't even give a shit. I was just like,
That's hilarious.
I was having a good time having this gig. And it was kind of weird when I go to a show or something and other artists, like these new young artists, are going, "Hey, you're Daje, huh?" And I didn't want to go like,
Oh
"No,
no.
I'm not. I'm this guy, Davy Vain." I'm like, "Yeah,
Oh,
that's right. You want to come record with me?" So it was definitely a kind of funny time. But we, all of a sudden, it turned out that the guy wanted to come to the studio, and he was this, a guy from UK, and he was, and then we go, "Oh, how the fuck are we going to do this?" He's going to come, and
yeah.
it's like, "Hey, Dodge, you're really into a lot of Vain stuff. I see you got a Davy Vain platinum record, and it's like all this stuff that had my name on it. It was just like, and then we just had to tell the guy, and he's like, "Oh, that's cool, man. No, I'm not worried about that." My friend was really into Skid Row, and he went to the Skid Row Vain show years ago, but so it
Well,
all
that's
worked
right.
out. But it was kind of funny. It was one of those things where you think that still couldn't happen, So I was kind of the
Well,
secret producer for a while.
I feel why you did that. I mean, because there's like a stigma, but the truth is, I mean, I think there's going to be a point where you doing live vocals. I mean, it's such an asset that you have that, and it's kind of singer you are. The newer vocals, they don't do it live, and even the newer producers aren't aware of it. They didn't grow up in the same time. Like you
I
add
mean,
so much. It's almost like the commercials always say like you gotta hire somebody out of college with this degree, or you gotta hire somebody who has 30 years of the same experience just because they're a little older from a different time period. They've got all the real experience. Why take away all the experience you have? You offer so
yeah.
much more that
And,
they don't have.
and and there's stuff you don't even think about. Like they don't even
Right.
know, like, she was telling friends of hers in LA to come see Vane shows, not even because they like rock. They're just like, "Hey," and I don't want to say this to brag or anything. They're just saying, "You have to watch what he does between the songs." You know what I mean? You'll learn a lot of how he's taking the audience. And I didn't really
Right.
think about that because it just seemed like a normal thing that a lot of
Yeah,
people that
exactly.
I know can do, because I know pro people that are,
Right.
signed mostly, and then they're just like, "Oh yeah, man, I learned so much. It's like a master class in stagecraft." And I didn't even think of that, and I'm like, well, that's really flattering. But that's something that takes some experience shows to do starting off. And it's something that's hard for a lot of people. They don't really know what to do at singing. I mean, it got to the point with some artists like, "Hey, don't do that with the mic, don't point it down at the," they had never done a show, you know. One thing that was really cool though is then the record company goes, "Hey, why don't we hire Davy Vain or Dage or whoever he is to go with you on your first tour and just, make sure everything's cool." And I thought, well, that sounds like a great gig. And
That
she
sounds
was
like a
going to go
sweet
to,
gig.
we're
Oh,
talking Paris places, you know what I mean? European gig. And it was so, and I was just like, and she did great, and it's just like, it's like when I just
that's awesome.
had some tracks, we were running some backing tracks. It was really interesting. It was kind of educational for me because she was playing with groups that had like two people sometimes. There'd be a guitar player and a
Right.
singer and a computer. And at first I was like, this is really kind of, at first I thought all the computer music really sucked, and then I just realized, wow, there's a bunch of super talented people doing that too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're
Right.
just, it's just happened to be these weird beats and these lines. But then I'd listen to some guy's bass line, like, holy shit, that's fucking good, because one thing that was interesting about it is you're sitting around the studio and the record company goes, "We have 10 songs coming in for you guys to check out." And then I was
Hmm.
like, okay. So they'd send us 10 songs from like 10 different people from all over the world. And all the songs would just be like a verse and like another part, like two parts without vocals, nothing, just music and a groove, and then one other groove. And then it was like nothing else, no bridge, no anything. And then she'd listen to me, she goes, "I really dig that one." And I'm like, okay, that is pretty cool. So then we'd write something to it, then we'd work on the chorus, and then I'd call the guy and go, "Hey, we got some cool stuff for your song. You know what? Can we do like a middle eight? What if we go to, then I'd kind of go try to think, let's do one other part since there's only two parts. And sometimes we'd leave two parts because a lot of the music, they don't have bridges anymore. So, but it was like pretty interesting because some of the stuff they were sending me was really cool. And some, so a lot of rock people don't like that, but it was just, I like to keep an open mind about stuff. And there's this one guy named Chet Faker, and he was had just like this weird riff on a Heineken commercial in the Super Bowl and made like 200K or something. You know what I mean? And so he was the guy that was like so good at all this stuff, and the new guy. It turned out that we had a gig with him, the Rainy Girl that I was going with, and you're in England, right? So I'm
Right.
back. So they come rolling in, and I'm thinking, and the place is packed with all these kids and stuff. And I go, wow, man, they must really get off on just this computer stuff. I guess he's just going to go out there with this computer music that was really good. I mean, if you listen to the separate parts, you could tell he played that. And then there's some other amazing little riff. But then, and the beat's kind of the main part of it for a lot of the young artists, where like back in
Right.
our
Right.
day, the guitar riff is the main part, and then someone would put a cool groove to that or whatever. So he rolled in, and he's got this huge band with the guitar players and a drummer. And then somebody goes, "That's the hottest drummer in Australia." That he got. He's an Australian guy, right? And then he comes out and he has a Fender Rhodes on stage, and I go, "Are you going to
Oh,
use
wow.
tracks?" And he goes, "No." And I go, "Really? You're not going to do any of this stuff like you said?" He goes, "No, no. On this tour, I decided to just play with a band." And I'm like, "Okay." And then he just goes out there and just rips. And this band is like, and then I go to the guitar player, I had like a flying V. Are you going to do any solo? He goes, "Nah, they don't let me really do solos. It's not that kind of thing." But I go, "Okay." So then I go out in the band, and he's singing like, Bad Company singer, Paul Rogers or something, but with gritty. And
Right.
and they're all digging it. And I'm like, I guess they know that he has two different completely kinds of music. So it was kind of interesting for someone like me that was kind of stuck in my ways for years of just like, this is how you do it, and you're rock, and this is the rules of rock, and just kind of, instead of just burying your head in the sand, because there's that whole new wave that was even newer than when I was working on the Christina record. And then I was working with some other bands with Sub Pop. I did a bunch of records with Sub Pop. That was kind of the rock, garage rock, but it was still kind of done the same way. Then when this whole computer thing came in, now it's kind of ruined because now you don't even have to make it up yourself. But
That's kind of the boring part. Yeah, that's the only part that bums me out. I'm
hmm.
okay in artists doing whatever they want, but
I
there's a certain
saw
point
this.
where you don't have to create anymore. That's the part where I'm like, okay, that's
I know. I just saw this clip, and I guess I'm an arrogant old rock guy, but this kid is showing you his production technique. He goes, check it out, man. I'm using Suno, and here's my riff, here's my lyric, and it was just like la da 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 da, and a couple words. He goes, and then I put this in, and then okay, and I told it, and then all of a sudden the whole thing, because it's all written, it was songs, and he goes, and then I go, okay, let me hear one other beat, and then it's just like, and then all of a sudden that comes in. It's all these backgrounds and different instruments. And the guy goes, "Yeah, man." He goes, "That's exactly how I wanted it produced. So I felt good about it." I was like, you didn't produce anything, dude. But it's sort of funny, just like that's how it is now. And I guess it's going to just be robots making
that's
everything.
not producing. That's like, I mean, I would just go actually for analog production, splicing. I mean, that's
I
telling a
know he
computer
was
what to
very
do.
proud of himself, but
It's a good
he
toy,
made it.
and good for you. I mean, I'm not even take away from the vision of creativity for somebody because it's all different for everybody. But that's not the same as saying that's not the production. Yeah, change the name. It's like when you say, you're a rock star. Everyone's a rock star. No, you're not a rock star. You know, you're not driving a motorcycle down the Hyatt House and throwing a TV out the window. You're a hairdresser and you do a good job, but you're not a rock star. Let's keep some of the words and terms together for what that you do. You're
I
not doing
know. It's like,
production. You're playing on a really cool musical toy, and it's awesome sounding for you, but that's not what production
yeah.
is.
And it's
You
on
know?
some of that stuff's on the radio, or not radio, but
Oh yeah.
Spotify. Chris Lord Alge always thinks it's funny when people go, "I'm a mixer," and he goes, "Yeah, you're a mixer. All right, you produced and mixed this whole thing and master. I'm a mastering engineer. You're not a
Oh
mastering
God.
engineer. You use the mastering plugin." But it's like there's always a new generation, and that's how they'll make stuff. I got a feeling that something will come out that'll be all the stuff that's wrong about music to them that a
Mhm.
computer can't simulate, and it'll be like, just a raw thing that you can't reproduce and people get moved by that too.
We'll see. I've and had this talk and everyone gets upset, but I'm like, I think if any bunch of music is going to do it, anything with guitars and drums and rock and real vocals is going to survive this because the audience, our generation, and then when you go to shows, it's usually my age, my kids, and then or people bringing three generations to shows. I'm sure you're seeing three generations at your shows now, and
Oh
and
yeah.
so people still want to hear live guitar. You want to hear one time is a mistake, second time you do it, it's on purpose live. People want that. People want to hear live and sweat. I want to hear something what you sound like on the album to a band. Or if you can't, it's still live. There's a lot of people still want that. It might be niche for a while because rock goes up and down, but it's still going to be there. That I think that's one saving grace for rock and roll. That's my prediction. You know,
Yeah, because there's a lot of kids going to some of the newer kind of, British,
yeah,
European things and the big festivals there. So,
I think it's will
and then
do
there's
it.
a lot of
But
people learning how to play instruments too. You see people ripping on stuff all the
mhm,
time. I just saw an interview with David Gilmour, and they were
yep,
talking. Do you know how to play Comfortably Numb? No. Do you have to relearn that? He goes, I actually don't know the whole thing without listening to it. But he goes, but I did see a 13-year-old girl do it the other day on YouTube, and it was note for note perfect. so,
that's
so there's
hilarious.
all these other people that are really good at playing stuff. You know, so
A
you
lot of
don't
artists do that
really
though. You know
know.
that online,
Well,
they look up their own stuff before they go on tour. I was Slash or someone was just saying that. Like, I don't know. I've heard a lot of artists go before I go on tour. I literally have to relearn my stuff. I go on like Ultimate Guitar. I have to go on. I watch somebody on YouTube to relearn some of my licks. Like they're literally relearning some from other people. They're emulating them from generations. So
it's true. It's like
it's difficult.
Joe Satriani did that to learn the Van Halen stuff,
That's hilarious. That's
because
hilarious.
he first listened to the album and learned it. Then he goes, "Oh, I saw him live and he did it different." And then he said the way he holds his pick, and then he just started watching YouTube people, and he goes, "Oh, that guy plays more like I do, and this is how he does it. That's a good way." So he was getting all this information from different places. But
I can imagine learning Eddie. I mean, because Eddie played every time he played different every time, and
yeah,
he did what you were talking about actually. Because I said earlier, so you talk about like singing something technically that would be technically you're not supposed to do it, but it sounds good. I mean, kind of that was kind of Eddie's thing. Like if you put on paper what he's doing on guitar, it's a no-no. But man, it sounded awesome because it really was a no-no. Sonically, it's good. So to
yeah.
have all these extra rules, it's the same
It was
thing.
so
You know what I
many,
mean?
so much. It's the attitude. So what's really funny is I just saw somebody they had the tracks for Dance the Night Away,
Yep.
separate tracks, and you could just solo Eddie. And he was just doing whatever the hell he wanted to. Like he would, the song da 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 da, that he did that
Hmm.
whole riff, and then the band was playing, and everybody's pretty much just digging in. And then the second verse comes, and he goes way down. He brought up the guitar, and he's playing super
Yeah.
dynamic on the second verse, but nobody else is. But he just decided that I'm going to let this down when he goes, alive, why you didn't barely begin, that shit. And it's like, but it gave it a different feeling for a second that nobody, because there's nothing else going on except the bass and
Right.
drums. So it's just like most of that stuff was all live off the floor. I love that live off the floor kind of thing. That's what we
Well,
try to try for too.
I think he's saving that. I think it's going to hopefully, you'll have time to get some more artists in to do that and carry that on, you know, and help carry on the torch generationally. Someone will go, you know what I learned to do, you know, this will be old men, young at the clouds. They'll be like, hey, these young people can be like doing live music and playing live, from stuff that they've learned,
Yeah. And then
now.
there's bands that now are older that used to be the young guys, like Hardcore Superstar. I'm
Yeah.
really good friends with them because he's like, was a very big, I mean, this guy was such a Vain fan that he said when he was a kid, they wanted to be super radical and they really like No Respect. So they learned all of No Respect and they
Right.
set up a thing near a church or something for some reason and then had a big screen behind them playing pornos and did the whole just to make some kind of statement or something, which I always thought it was the greatest thing ever. Because and the fact in Sweden they let you do that, you don't get any shit. Well,
Oh,
they're
really?
making their own, vibe,
Art.
So yeah, art. So and those guys are very popular, like on the cruises and some of the festivals they play, and they've been probably doing it for over 10 years now. You know what I mean? And they've got, they're still very,
Yeah.
aggressive and doing a high energy stage show, and so there's those bands, and then there's some new brand new bands. So I think there's always going to be bands that were influenced, by the bigger bands that are still
It's
touring.
weird. I think some of the newer bands, there's some really great ones. And then some of the ones that are trying to copy of a copy of a copy of a copy, there's a couple of them that are literally just imitating and they're missing a couple of the original vibes of some of them. There's some younger bands that also still got their own gig and they're still doing rock. In that mix, that's what I'm saying. There's a few of them like, God, it feels like they're just too much. They're not themselves yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they
Well,
haven't
that's how
found
I
their
kind
sound.
of thought about Greta Van Fleet. Like I just thought they were just too much like a band I like. There's one thing if you're influenced, but that was just like you're just imitating exactly. And it just,
I
but
mean,
so
technically, what else is he going to do with his voice? But at least admit that you sound like him.
like you're trying, it's just not a coincidence. You know what I mean?
No,
You're
no,
copying the
no. They
riffs. It'd be different if nobody else in the band did the exact same thing. But whatever. If some people dig it, that I'm fine with it. It's not like it's going to affect
But
my
then you
life.
can have a voice and not still. You can still. I guess what makes I think I feel like some of these artists are still missing their own imprint. You can still do that kind of rock, but there's something that each band had, and it happened. And it happened in the '80s, and it happened in the '90s. So every band, it happened towards the end, to the early '90s. By that time, everybody was copying you guys and copying all LA Guns and Guns N' Roses. The third and fourth generations were becoming exact versions
Yeah.
without actually having the special thing that each of you guys had.
And then the same thing happened with the Seattle bands, and everybody came out and was going,
Exactly.
oh, singing about,
It just happened faster with the Seattle bands because the turnout was
yeah,
faster
because
on that
then
one.
everybody had to do it. Really, I mean, it was funny. Even the A&R people became Seattle people. Like I met A&R people, like this one chick in particular, just looked like regular A&R type person and dressed
Mm-hmm.
kind of rock and roll-ish. Then when I was playing with Steven Adler in the Road Crew project, it was only about a year
Yeah,
and a half, 2 years after that. She came to
yeah,
one of the showcases and she was completely looked like she was in one of the Nirvana videos, and it was just like from head to toe, and that's fine because that's how style is, but I thought it was kind of funny, even the A&R people are the,
right.
Seattle people. But yeah, you know what? I think it is because most of the people that got signed had something unique to get a record deal. That's what's kind of,
Exactly, exactly.
what's going on now too. What I just heard about is there's no gatekeepers anymore for the release of the stuff. Before radio and was the only thing that got played on an MTV, but the only people they could get are people that were signed, and it was so hard to get signed. So they and there was only so many people, but now
Right.
anybody can get on Spotify. So there's such gigantic gluttony of it, and now I just heard on an Eddie Trunk thing show that record companies see how many monthly views you have, not
Yeah.
total, but monthly.
Mhm.
And it's like, and it's so hard for people to get a lot because there's more bands than ever on there, so it's
Right.
so
You water
much.
it down.
Yeah, there's just a zillion things on there. So it makes it really hard for new bands, even if they're creating a little following where their hometown was, they can't compete on that level yet because they're not known enough. And then they don't get to go to the next level, even if they're back in the days, if you sold out a club, you were noticed. And even
Right.
in our case, we still had to go do it. We still had to go play LA because we weren't in LA. Like, oh, you're selling out,
Yeah.
you're selling out, here, but can you, pack a place in Los Angeles or something, So,
Well,
and we
touring's
kind of
very
had to
different
do
now too,
that.
though, right?
What's that?
Touring's different now. Touring is different to break a band now too, though. It's a different world. None of these new
Yeah.
artists can tour like any of the bands from before. It's still the older bands that are touring now and can fill the house and make enough money to put gas in the tank to continue to do this. I don't think a lot of these artists could fill a house.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, some of the bands that I was producing like 15 years ago and stuff that were kind of more the garage band guys, they
Hmm.
were like, they were kind of doing it on the sub pop thing, but they'd have to just rough it and like go home with chicks and stuff like that. You know what I mean? They were a bunch of
Right.
good looking guys though. So they always had somebody inviting them to their house. But back when I was on tour, that was like a big no-no. You never went to anybody's house on the tour, no matter what, because there was people that got shot. That's like
Yeah.
I've known, there was a person that was just went home with some chick and just smoking a cigarette on the porch the next morning, and somebody's boyfriend or something shot the guy. He lived,
Oh wow.
you don't know where you're going or the situation you're in. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
you're never supposed to go home. And there was all these rules that we didn't make them up when we first started playing. The tour manager goes, "This is how it goes," and nobody ever goes anywhere because some people go, "Oh, this, some beautiful girl. I'm in love. I'm going to go to her apartment. I'll meet you guys in the morning." It's like, no, you're going to go anywhere. And now, but they were
That
doing
sounds
it
like
because there was nowhere to sleep. So they were just doing their own new rules.
yeah.
We're all piled in a van. It's a lot tougher to do it that way too. I mean, even though when we were on Island Records, they were all fucked up because they got sold. I don't know if I told you this in the last interview. But we were so stoked to get signed by them because we loved their A&R guy so much. He was
Mhm.
so into the songs. He'd call me at night and go, "Oh, I just heard your new song, Thousand Degrees. I can't sleep." And we're like, "Oh, this guy's feeling us," where everybody else wanted us to
Yeah.
be, write songs with songwriters and be like a big hit band. And and so we were so stoked. So we finally, got its deal with Island Records. And we had a really crazy lawyer at the time. His name was Brian Rohan, and he was signed like
Hmm.
everybody from the 70s and 60s, like the Grateful Dead and Janis Joplin and Carlos Santana, Boston.
Oh, wow.
The Boston got turned down 22 times, and that was the real record. And then when they finally got signed, they go, "Now you have to go make a real record." And then Brian was all that they have the record already. And that's the record we all know. And they go, "Oh no, they have to go to
Right.
a proper studio and do it," because they just thought like different. And so they had to get a studio and just fuck around in there and pretend like they did some shit. But
Yeah.
they really just gave them the same thing again later with a little extra something. And they go, "Oh, now it's good." So anyway, he was really funny. And our A&R guy, he needed to be able to get, his boss had to okay it. But he
Yeah.
was on us, and he would be backstage, and he had long hair and looked young. So when A&R people from different companies came in after the show, they'd talk all like corporate, and that song could be a single in our production team. And he would just stand there with, and they just thought he was in the crew or something. And then when he left, he goes, "You don't want to make a record with them." And he made it seem like, "You're making a record. That's such an important thing. They're looking at a record like it's a product. A record's art piece, like the records you have in your record collection.
Yeah.
Like when you're listening to your favorite record, Aerosmith, or something, you're not thinking of it as a product. You're thinking of it as the band making a statement." And we were like, "Yeah, he knows everything." But our lawyer, um, he was this really crass too. He was like a John Madden kind of guy, and he was really, politically incorrect and stuff. And so one day he finally goes up and he goes, "Listen, Steve." His name was Steve. He goes, "When you were a kid and you'd go to the toy store, you'd play with the stuff, and they go, 'You got to buy that. You got to get out of here.' And you'd have to go to your mom or your dad and go, 'I want to, please give me money and I could play with the toys. Please give me money.'" He goes, "That's the situation we're at now at this point of this." He goes, "You've been following these guys around." He goes, "Now I want you to go to daddy and I want you to get the money to buy the toy." He goes, "You get the money and sign the band." He goes, "I don't care what you do with them." He was just laughing because this guy was so famous for being this crazy crass dude. And so, you know, we finally do get signed to Island Records. And I happened to be hanging out at this club, The Stone, where we got signed, seeing some other bands. And
Hmm.
Rick Rubin knew who I was. And he came up to me to ask me some questions about Death Angel because his friend was producing the new Death Angel record. And he knew that I worked on those early albums. And so we're talking about that. And then he goes, "Hey, so what's going on with Vain?" And I go, "Oh, man, we just got a record deal." And he's kind of like happy for us looking. And I go, "Yeah, we're stoked. We're on Island Records." And he doesn't, without a beat, he just goes, "Oh, really? They have terrible promotion." And he just says it like that, not even like they have terrible promotion or, "Oh, wow." He just said, "Oh, they have terrible promotion." And I just kind of go, I didn't really know what to say. I mean, it's like, I just got married to this chick. "Oh, she's a hooker." It's like, what do you really say? So I just kind of went, "Oh, okay." And then I just went, "Well, anyway, it was nice seeing you, man." So, it's just like, it's sort of, you never
Well,
know.
well, I mean, he called it. It's funny. So, like, when that album came out, it was different because I think, and why we're talking even now with such a strong fan base, you lasted through everything without being like, touring all those stadiums your whole career,
Yeah.
but you're still very relevant. You have such a strong because you came out with that album, and that album kind of it it cut through. Like, it was still looking Kerrang. Like, I know a lot of people, I was listening to like Death Angel, a lot of bands like that back then too. But Vane's album was like the one cool album that could be like not like that. That was still cool. I don't know, because it was like the album's kind of punk and it's kind of Cure, but it's kind of glam, but it has these cool elements in it that are just so different that it didn't get lumped in with like everything else. And all the metal guys are still listening to it. And there's something very
It's funny,
special.
yeah. It's pretty
And
rocking, yeah. It's like we were always kind of proud of that a lot of different
yeah,
people
but you kept
liked
that
it.
sound. But that is your sound too now. Though I'm saying, but that was the sound you captured, and it's who you are. and it cut through everything else though. It was always so amazing that was the well, yeah, Vane's cool. Like you know what I mean, even like the
Thank you.
tough Slayer fans were always like they're cool. But all this like they and that was one of the things like all your death metal albums or whatever, and then usually someone had Vane. Because Vane was in there. It was
It's
so
funny because a lot of the guys that were around San Francisco were like Exodus and
yeah.
all these bands, and we were like the posers or whatever, But I've hung out with them since or played festivals, and they're just like, "Hey, man, I used to go to all your shows to get chicks." You know what I mean? Then I go, "I'm in a band too," and they're like, "Oh, cool." You know what I mean? It's like,
I think
so,
Gary actually said in his book because I had Gary on. He was talking. He said, they go to all the metal shows to meet the girls
yeah, it's
because they
always
got there at
pretty.
their shows, but and then they'd go kill the posers at their shows. But then he goes to the girls at the other ones. Pretty funny, you know.
Yeah, I know, man. It's just like we did have we were kind of when we were in the club scene, people would go, I would not wear this anywhere except at a Vane show, you know what I mean? So, so that was kind of a fun kind of a thing. And it was cool that a lot of different people liked it. We were never really, I mean, we did when we first started, we had some pretty cool, kind of glammy stuff too, but we were definitely influenced way more of hard rock than we were of like, you
Right,
know, Hanoi Rocks or something, even though I like that our heroes were really, like Aerosmith and Judas Priest and Iron Maiden and, of course, all the 70s, Ted Nugent, Coliseum rock, you know what I mean?
right.
We grew up on Coliseum rock. And then we liked some of the other outskirts of different stuff. We loved The Cure and we loved, that stuff. I think I told you that in the last interview too. When we were living, the bar we would hang out was called the Night Break. They were just playing all alternative music the whole time, which was
Oh, were they?
alternative music there. It was like Bauhaus and, Bela Lugosi's Dead and The Cure and just, all this. That was the original alternative music. You know what I mean? Not
Oh,
where
yeah,
it was,
yeah, exactly.
so, and we loved that stuff too. And it kind of created a vibe for us, being in a city as a band all living
There's
together.
something the energy carried over to you guys, and I think obviously, you don't sound like you're by any means, but there's something with the energy to me, the very openness, and there was something about that. The good part of the Cure that people liked is it's the same energy, but it carried over with this rock and roll energy. Is what just made me always think of you guys for some reason. I don't know what it was, like it was in the
Yeah,
best way.
it was so I think some of it has to do too that I first started being a singer. That's the first thing I did in music. But um but the band I was in, it was me and it was like three 18-year-old, 19-year-old kids basically. And then this guy, I still don't really know how old he was, but he was much older than us. And he was like this kind of hippie dude named Fred Wandry. And he was married, he had a kid, and we had his
It's
little
like
practice.
56 years old.
He could have been older, and then just he liked to
That'd be
smoke
hilarious.
tons. He'd like to smoke tons of joints, and he was just like, and he was just stoked to have these kids to jam with, basically. You know what I mean? And he was really cool. And we thought he was really cool because he was like worldly and he was kind of like a Jimi Hendrix kind of dude. And he really ripped on guitar too. He'd be like, and they just plugged me into the bass amp and gave me a mic,
Oh,
and they just go make some shit up. And I didn't even know what I was doing. I didn't. It was all original music of his. So he would just go, okay, it goes like this, been a long time, been a long low, or something like that, and then just sing something.
yeah.
And then I go, okay. And so they didn't even pay attention to me that much. It was so loud. And I was in the bass there, but it probably sounded really fucked up. We never recorded anything. I was only there for 6 months. But while we were doing it, he'd always say something to me about like one time I was out and somebody said, oh, you play with that Fred Wandry guy. He's kind of weird. And I go, yeah. And I was so stoked. I was so naive then. I go, oh my God, I'm in a band. I go, I have a chance to be a rock star now. You know what I mean? I had no idea that the odds were like so against you. But I thought being in a band is like really like 75% of it. And I guess it is true. You know what I mean? Like if you're not in a band, you're
Yeah.
really not going to do. But I thought, I'm actually in a band. This is so fucking cool. And so the guy goes, that guy's kind of strange. I went to a gig one time, like, and it was like, in the early 70s or something like that. He's like, and he was like, doing a lead rolling around on the ground and he stuck his head inside the kick drum while he was doing a lead. I thought that was kind of weird. And I'm like, that does sound kind of weird. So I go to practice and he's sitting there and he's like, rolling a joint, you know, and he's just saying, I don't think he ever even touched the guitar without getting stoned. And then he's all, and I looked at him like, hey, Fred, I talked to some guy that saw you play. And he goes, oh, yeah? Cool, man. And I go, he said that you were rolling around on the ground and you stuck your head in a kick drum or something. So he just like, just making the rounds, bro. Just making the So it's just like, that was my first influence. Really weird, though, is a few times in my life I had like something like, you know, like something on click, and it was like,
Yeah.
you know, and I was, you know, I really wasn't into sport, and I was just kind of like an average kid, and we'd go shooting guns, better shot than a few people, but I never kind of went like, I want to be, I just didn't think like that. I just thought, I just want to be a kid and have fun, you know what I mean? Or to be the best at one thing or something like that.
Right.
And then an English friend, and he wanted to go be on the soccer team, right? Same at school, and I probably suck. But there's this huge field that you'd have to go run. I would just follow whoever the first guy was, and I guess I was just a mad running or something, and I had no idea about it. So then the coach saw me, and then he goes, out and we've got this meet tomorrow, and you want to be the, you know, just go. And I go, oh, really? What do you do? And he goes, so you just run with the guy and try to beat him at the end. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I thought, well, that's kind of, you know, as fun as soccer, hanging out with my friend Roland, because we used to go shooting guns and could beat him. So I go, okay, I'll do it. So I went and did it. Oh, that guy is their best guy. And then at the end, he goes, go that way. He went the next day. I'm at the soccer practice, and the coach is all, he go, I won. He goes, you won. And he was like shocked. You know what I mean? So anyway, the coaches took me to the office, and they go, you're off the soccer team. You're going to just do this running thing. I wanted to hang out with my friend Roland. No, you don't understand. You're kicked off. I go, okay. So I started running, and I just started beating all these people. And it's funny because I remember once I started getting into rock, I never really talked to people about that I was like an athlete for a while and stuff like that until I started meeting like other people. All the lead singers were pretty much athletes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like 90% of them came from a sporting background. So, but anyway, so this is kind of, you know, so one day I thought, okay, the coach said, okay, you got to do this. And you have to train. You have to go run every day, you know, and you know, and then I thought this is kind of fun. But you know, and then one day I was running, and I just thought, and I was thinking to myself, because it really helped me for rock too. I used to train and go running, and I'd visualize going on tour when we first got signed, you know, and I would just like visualize being on stage, and, you know, just like it's this really tranquilizing thing about it. And so, but anyway, so I was in this kind of mode. I'm just running, you know, these, you know, trails. And then I just thought, God, what if I just decided to not just be like, do this, but what if I just beat everybody? And I never thought of something like that before as a kid. For some reason, I never thought like, I just want to, you know, blow everybody away and be number one or something, you know what I mean? Right. And it seemed like a weird thought, you know, but I go, what if I just beat everybody? You know, and what if I just won every time I don't let anybody beat me? How do I have to do that? And all of a sudden, this thing just kind of went, shh, like you could do that, you know, and it was some kind of weird little thing that I never had before, like a little vision, like you could do that, you know. And then, so then I did, and I did do very well. And it was just like, and that kind of gave me also later a background for when I did decide to have my own band and really dedicate everything to that I knew that if somebody outworked you, they can beat you. You know what I mean? So I didn't want to look at the thing like a total competitive thing, but Vain was a very competitive band. It wasn't like we disliked other people, but even to this day, sometimes we almost take the stage every time like we want to just destroy fucking everybody, you know what I mean? And now we're older too, so we used to just go on stage with just so much ferocity of just like, check this shit out, you know? There was never like, hey, let's smoke weed and just go, you know, or let's just get drunk all night. We were just like, you know, we're always had a chip on our shoulder like that, you know, like we are fucking gonna win, you know? And so that little vision I had was kind of interesting because then I'd gone to concerts and stuff, and I was a huge fan. Like it's Aerosmith and all this cool stuff when I was a kid, and just like, oh my god, that's so fun. I go to school the next day and I go, that was the greatest thing. And everybody, all the older kids would go, are you crazy? They fucking sucked. I couldn't even tell what song it was. I go, I don't know what you were watching. That was the greatest thing ever. Steven Tyler was there. And so anyway, when my buddy, I think if I wasn't into the running thing, I maybe would have never got in a band or anything. But a guy that I used to beat all the time was the drummer of this band with the 60s guy. And he goes, hey, your mom's a singer. And I heard you can sing a little bit and stuff like that. You should come jam with my band. We don't have a singer. So, and I'd gone all these concerts. I'm in a room that's just a small little room too, right? Or a little jam room. The first time I went in there, and they just, three of them are going to play. And they just said, you could just watch us play. And when they jam, it sounded different than anything I'd ever heard being at a concert. I was in this little room and I could hear it all right there. And I had that same feeling like, this is what I'm going to do. Like, I just knew I'm going to do this. I didn't know I was going to do it like this long, but I knew that I was going to do that, and it's really funny because I used to tell everybody in the band back in the day that I want to do 10 records. And then after that, I'll probably retire. And I thought, well, that'll probably be like 40. I kind of did the math, you know what I mean? It's just like, and now I'm actually working on our 10th record. But, I don't know if that's going to really turn out. So anyway, that was kind of, the catalyst to everything. And, and I learned a lot of stuff about, music from just like, one day I want to write lyrics too. And I knew you had to write lyrics to be a singer. And I came in and I go, hey, and he was the same dude was working on the song, getting stoned. And I was just listening to him and I'm like, hey man. And I think that's what started my barefoot thing too. It's like, I showed up with like flip-flops at a practice one time. They go, we're playing a show right now. And I'm like, what? I never played a show. And go, yeah, we're going to play this backyard party. Right. And I go, I don't even bring shoes or anything. And they go, oh, well, whatever, figure it out. And I go, oh, fuck it. I'll just go barefoot, because they used to call me kind of the jungle boy anyway. All the friends of bands, they go, you're kind of like a jungle boy or something. So I just figured
probably cool to wear flip-flops though. I don't know if flip-flops are kind of like,
no, I didn't. I went barefoot, and I was going to
say, but flip-flopping across stage would have been like, oh boy.
Yeah, I was always kind of, my nickname in one of my other bands before I started Vain was like Jai. They go, you're Jai, you're like a jungle boy or something. So anyway, he was writing this love song, and he goes, I'm writing a love song. I go, really? Can I write the lyrics? And he just goes, well, can I ask you a question? Have you ever had like a chick take your heart and smash it in like a million pieces, and you were just crying like baby every night because you couldn't sleep? And I'm thinking, that's lame, and it's like, no. And he goes, then he goes, you can't write no fucking love song, Dad, and I didn't realize it until it kind of happened. I don't know about the crying part, but anyway. So, but then me and the drummer started having some issues because he was like completely crazy. I mean, I even had to call the cops on him once at a different time because he was going to destroy like our whole house or something. And then he was just in the police car waving at us. He was certifiably nuts. He ended up being a drummer too. It's funny. When I got a record deal, he goes, I told you could do it and all that stuff, it's like, and I go, what have you been doing? He goes, I'm still playing drums and I got kids all over the county now. So I kind of lay low with different chicks. And I'm like, oh, okay. But he was this crazy guy. So we got in this argument and then he called me and he goes, you know what, man? We're going to have a guy come in here and he could sing Stairway to Heaven just like the record. So we're thinking of doing a cover of Stairway to Heaven. So, they basically like kicked me out of the band, and then I was just so pissed off and I was just like, I'm going to get them, and then it's like, it was really hard to run around the house going, I'm going to sing all day by myself, so I had my guitar. So I just practiced guitar. And just because that felt more like I'm going to practice and I'm going to write songs and practice. And then I will show them that they fucking made a mistake because I was really bad. But I was also a little intimidated. Like, he could sing Stairway to Heaven just like the record. Fuck, because I never even tried to sing any cover songs or anything.
Oh, really?
But I think that kind of helped me because I never even, nothing recorded. We never recorded anything, but the guy would always go, there's something about your voice, man. It's got this like little gold thing on it. I don't know. It's hard to say. There's something about your voice. And I go, oh, cool. We never recorded anything. We didn't even, use a ghetto blaster.
Yeah.
I never even heard myself. So then I just thought, and so since I didn't listen to records and sing along with them like a lot of singers do, and then end up becoming one of their heroes or whatever.
Right.
So then I just played guitar for a long time until I was in a band. And then and I wanted to show them some of my songs, and this band was really dedicated. I think we played like 5 nights a week or something like that, 5 or 6 nights a week. And they had all these ideas of what they wanted to do. And, and I was kind of like, the last guy that they got. I actually went to the audition and the drummer was there with a chick, and I auditioned for a different band. And then they called me and said, oh, I'm quitting that band, but you could join me in this chick's band. So I was bopping around in a few groups before that. Right. So anyway, then I was working with this girl that's a friend of mine, and she was this kind of hipster 18-year-old chick that opened her own record store in Santa Rosa and was really a lot more sophisticated than most of the people in Santa Rosa, kind of a punk rocker, and had their own import section in the Record Factory and stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and at that time I was working at Rainbow Records, and I had a job at a record store. This is, a few years later. And so, we even had like Motley Crue, do an in-store, like their very first tour. She goes, oh, these guys, Motley Crue, you've heard of them? I go, yeah, I've heard of them. They go, they're going to be in the store. Come on down. So we went down, and it was Vince and Tommy, and they had their full stage clothes on. So there was like 10 people there. You know what I mean? This is when they first started. Yeah, there's like nobody even knew who the hell they were, and they were going to play at the Santa Rosa Vets building, and it's like, and so it was funny. And Vince gave her a little note, and the note said, her name was Kat. She goes, Kat, you're beautiful. I wish you were my sister, Vince. But it was the funniest thing ever, So, so anyway, there was a lot of stuff happening around our town. And then I thought, and then she goes, I have somebody at a studio. I was talking to her, and I go, man, these guys don't want to play any of my songs. I got this one song, and, that's the only thing I'm kind of like, I want to write songs too. I just want to just be a guitar player. And she goes, okay, well, why don't you go? I have this studio you could go to, and you could record something there. And then I go, okay. And so I did it with the drummer of the band. And then I just sang on it. I just go, well, I used to sing, so I'll just, make something. I go, this is how it goes. So I just sang like I usually sing now.
Right.
So we did the demo, and she was friends with Kirk Hammett, and she was going, hey, you got to check this out. And he listened to it, and he goes, oh, I want to produce him. I'm looking for people to produce. And his voice reminds me of a guitar whammy bar. So which I thought was like, and I didn't even care.
That's pretty cool.
Oh, huh?
That's pretty cool. It's not even a bad thing. It's just a different explanation,
You know what? I don't even, since I've done a lot of interviews, people ask me about my voice. I always thought, I have a lot of vibrato. And I go, that's probably bad. I have a kind of a weird vibrato or something. I always never thought about it. But I know Narda Michael Walton, who's the producer that did, all the Whitney Houston and Mariah Carey, and played with Jeff Beck. And when I started playing him some of my stuff, he goes, oh, you know what? He calls me Vain. He goes, hey, Vain, you know what? You got a really fast vibrato. And I go, oh, and he goes, you know who else has fast vibrato? And I go, no. And he goes, Stevie Wonder. So don't worry about it. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Well, there you go. Right.
So I thought that was pretty interesting. But anyway, so he heard the tape, and then he said, I want to bring this guy in a studio, and then we'll, I want to, start working with new artists. That's kind of
what was that like? Where was he at? Was he still in Exodus, or he had
no, he was in Metallica.
He had Metallica at that point?
This is like 86, 85, 86.
So he had just joined himself, probably pretty close to it.
No, he'd been in there a while. I guess
years
86. Then? Yeah. So they'd already had.
My timelines are sliding. Sorry.
Yeah. I think
my timeline is sliding.
Ride the Lightning and all that stuff. I think he was in it since 83 or something.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah.
So and then there was a whole completely whacked out scene. This weird studio. there was like a grid. It was an old like wine cellar in Sonoma. There was this big grid and it was electrified. The guy was hitting with a pole and he was just some crazy guy. And it was like sparks flying. So it was a pretty, and I just like, I still kind of had sang, for a year, and then wasn't really a professional singer yet, so I just did whatever I thought how the songs went.
Right.
And so then we did like 3 songs, something like that. And oh yeah, and before I went to do it, we told the guys in the other band, and I'd already done one show, but for some reason I was wearing some crazy stuff. They go, "You got to tone that down or something." And I'm thinking, I don't want to tone fucking down anything. And so then they said, "Hey, if you guys go to that, you're out of the band." And I go, "There's no way we're not going to go record with Kirk Hammett.
Right.
And then they just said, "Okay, well so that was it." So I had to make the decision. If I'm going to go record with him, then I'm going to be on there. And then I talked to some other people and they go, "Listen, if you want to have your own band, you have to sing. It's the only fucking way to do it. Unless you're the world's greatest guitar player or something like that. And even then it's hard. You gotta,
Yeah,
if
it
you want to
doesn't
write,
work out very much.
if you want to write songs, you've got to be the singer and write the songs. And then it's like, okay. So then I figured, well, my mom was a pro singer for 10 years and her sister was. My cousin's a singer. She even got lessons her whole life from like Judy Davis, that same person Eric Martin went to.
Yep.
And so then I thought, okay, well, we're going to do it. And that was it. I was just, on the path to, back to being a singer and, and kind of hanging up the guitar. And then, so it was definitely felt like a big risk or something. But then I just kind of got into it again. And then it helped me kind of get the band together that I wanted to, because it was like, that was such a big deal, especially from a bunch of kids from Santa Rosa. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like I worked with like Rock God guy on a tape, and it wasn't the greatest. I mean, it sounded kind of, I think we get it to we get it to Mike Varney. Remember that?
Yeah.
But he had his own label. I
Yeah.
saw
Yeah.
him. He gave me some
Yeah.
shit about it. I gave him shit about it. He was just at our show, like we played about a year ago. I see him in Vegas all the time.
Yeah.
I thought he was kind of a jerk, and I think it was me with my shirt off on the cover of the cassette. It was a cassette, and I think the songs were out for number one, and Ain't Heaven. I can't remember. They were like, and he goes, "Well, let me tell you one thing." He goes, "The image on the covers got an incredible image, but the production sucks and blah, blah, blah." He was telling it gave me a harsh review. And I think it was partly too like, I could produce better than Kirk Hammett or something like that. Like I felt, I'm not the producer. Look at all the production. To me, it's like, it's a demo, dude. And he goes, "Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know if you're gonna, do it or something." And I just thought, wow. And I made a mental note of that. I go, you know what? If I ever in a position that anybody wants my opinion, I'm never going to tell anybody. I'm never going to shoot anybody down like that. So he was kind of an asshole, but whatever. He actually ended up calling our rehearsal room a few years after that in Vain and going, "Hey man, I just heard the new Poison record. You blow that guy away, so you've got a chance," or something. And now he goes, "You know what? I got to admit, I've never really been a fan of Davy's voice." He was talking to Delon we had a tour bus out for this gig we just did, the last
Right.
Vamps gig in Vegas. And then he just said, "But I have to admit, if you put the needle down on the record, within 5 seconds, you know what band it is. You know what I mean? There's no band that sounds like that." So, but that I could have quit. I think somebody else would have just gone, "What the fuck am I doing? This is like, I'm really letting myself, I'm just going to start being a lead singer and just get all bunch of
Well,
critique."
yeah. I think. That obviously you made the right decision, but I think I always wondered this about you because your voice. There's a few singers out there that have very different voices, and when you have a different voice, when you first start out, everyone wants you to sound like whoever's a big star, and
Yeah.
I can hear you not sounding like anybody, and that's one of my
No,
favorite things about you. I mean,
a
obviously,
lot.
technically, musically, you're in key and it's all musically fine, but just your tone and the richness of your voice and your breathing and everything, is so different. And to me, a lot of it, obviously not just me.
Well,
When you
thanks.
first heard it, I was like, "This is awesome." But technically, I can see like if you're in a band, like, dude, man, I want you to like. I remember being in a band to sing into a bass amp too, and not a very good singer, but I was just the least sucky. Everybody else, kind of like how it goes in high school. But like everyone, every band you're in, they're like, "You gotta sound like John Fogerty. You gotta sound like Aerosmith. You got like." And I can't imagine somebody with a voice like yours and someone going, "What do we do with this? Because this is so original, and we are so not ready for this." You know what I mean? Like I can see
Yeah, I
that
mean,
being
I heard
walled
that a lot,
as
to
a
be honest with
yeah.
you,
That
when
I
we
can see that
first
being a
started.
wall when you're younger.
And also, I think it kind of hurts you in a way too. I think it
Oh
takes a
yeah,
couple of records to really have a kind of unique sound. You know what I mean? Because even when I first heard AC/DC, I thought it sounded kind of weird. The first time I heard Motley Crue, I thought, is that pitched up or something? You know, it
hmm
wasn't like, oh my God, I love this guy's voice. It took me a while to kind of get used to it, you know? And
right,
but Island Records was thinking of that. They were thinking of the old way, you know what I mean? Which was you build slowly. Like you
right. A couple
two,
albums.
if you listen to U2's first record, it sounds a lot different than their first, so they
Oh,
thought
totally.
your first record is exactly you at that moment, and that's who we found. And then you build up to being more produced, more polished with touring, and you get better at everything. You know what I mean? Especially if you're a younger band.
Right.
And it's like, but we didn't get that because the record company got sold and the music styles changed and everything too. But you know that was something that some people said might maybe take some people might take a while to get used to. You have a different kind of a
Yeah,
voice,
exactly.
so
But
but I didn't really think about it that much. I knew that I was aware of what was going on. I didn't want to copy anybody, but I was aware that you know when Guns N' Roses was breaking, we still didn't have the deal, and I knew that my voice wasn't like a evil, like wah kind of AC/DC ton of voice.
right.
But I just have to kind of do what I do and just keep
But
writing
Axl's high
songs.
voice also was different, and I think that's what made the difference. That voice is what
Yeah,
cut through the crowds of singers.
yeah,
That
exactly.
his other registers are good too. Don't get me wrong, what I'm saying, but vocally those were more in with everybody else. I think that was what separated when he could do that. Everyone's like, wait, what? And that's the same kind of vocal range you have, where it's just not the same. It doesn't sound like different, but that's the same different range where you're like out there on your own, and you're like, there's only one Davy Vain, and you either love it or
Uh,
you don't. Don't.
yeah, it's funny when we were doing the first record. I didn't even notice some of the stuff that our producer did. Like, he would talk about, because he did Queensryche and, he did all the vocal comps for Jeff Tate and stuff like that. But we didn't really have a
Oh,
lot of that. The only song that we did a couple of takes of is 1,000 Degrees, because that's the song the record company thought was going to be the first single. They were really into that
okay.
one. And they just said, just make your record, do what you want to do, but, put some extra love into that one. And so he was just like, he goes, oh, I want to make sure I get the takeaway. You say the degrees is the way you do. And I go, what do you mean? He's like, some of them you go degrees, and then some you do it a little. I like that when they really do the degrees. So I was like, okay, and somebody really analyzing it now in a different way. So that was cool. And he goes, I think we got some really good people came in here the other day, and I told them that you got a unique voice, and they said, what's the best way to describe it? And the guy goes, he's the missing link between Bon Scott and Steve Perry. I thought that was really weird. And I go, I guess that's cool. You know what I mean? It's like, I never
Okay.
really, I guess I don't know what they said. I have people send me stuff all the time. I sing like you, and they copy me and stuff. And, it's really weird. I used to be scared, actually. Um, Not that I think I'm that great or anything, but like you said, it doesn't sound like anybody else exactly.
No.
I used to get scared when things were getting bad, that somebody was going to just come out and have a voice that sounds like mine and make it. And then I'd be like, I was that guy, you know what I mean?
Oh, that would have
That,
sucked. That would suck.
yeah, like
Especially being so original sounding.
when Island Records folded and I wasn't really that known yet, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's just like I was just like thinking that would suck, like my one, thing I've got or something over somebody else. But yeah, so making the first record was cool because he did such a good job of capturing the vocal. He was
Mhm.
just like such a great. I mean, all the out records he worked on, like Jeff Tate had a great tone too. And if you
Well,
have a
I
great
mean, I
capturing the
can't think of anybody
tone is
better.
what's that?
I could imagine. I mean, I didn't know that. So it would work with Jeff Tate's voice. So you already have somebody familiar with a voice that also Jeff Tate's another guy.
I think I
You
had the
know,
same mic and everything. I had the same
right? So I
exact
mean,
setup.
you know,
Yeah.
he's. But in all honesty, now I've spoken to him a few times, and he did tell me he sold the soul of the devil for his voice. So they're just,
I don't
they
think I
did.
did that.
No, that's what
I
he
had
told
a
me he
lot of
did. So,
666s lately come up, which is a little bit
well,
scary, but and I don't really believe in all that stuff
no, he was
because
just joking with me, but it's funny. But having the vocal range and being aware, because back then Jeff Tate was also a different voice. You know what I'm saying? So you already had
yeah,
someone who's in a mindset. It was like, what am I going to do with this? It was already in his wheelhouse. It was like, oh, another different voice. I know what I'm going to do with this.
yeah, he's. I love the way he would, get it, the way he did his compressors. I kind of learned some stuff from him. Luckily, I was kind of just focused on not being like, "How did you do that? How did you do that?" Like now, if I went back in time, I'd be like writing
But that
shit down.
album,
Like,
but that album, no respect. I mean, I was in school literally for production and recording, and there's a handful of albums I was listening to back then, and that was one of them. So to
yeah,
me, and I was very much more critical because you don't get to, I don't you know, actually went to production classes. You listen to things, you be more critical. But like, it was done so well. Everything was done at a certain point where it wasn't overproduced. The voice was live, and it wasn't. You know what I mean, nothing was too tight or too crisp, but it breathed. And it was
yeah.
to me it was such a great example of a good rock record at the time.
He was such a great, engineer. It's just like, and he was good at not overproducing it too, because he knew
Well,
he
that's what I'm
wanted
saying.
that.
Yeah.
Even when he mixed it, he would just do stuff like he would just go, okay, you don't mix stuff like, turn the drum here and do that. He goes, you turn up the energy loud, that he
Hmm.
goes, like your voice is a lot of the energy of the song. So you've got to be not in the mix. You got to be above it a little bit because there's a lot of excitement going on with your,
Yeah.
that's part of the, vocal approach. And, you're kind of ahead of everything. And then on Beat the Bullet, it's funny because Beat the Bullet was never even considered a single at all. That's why Danny West played all the guitars on it because James Scott, who now Delana Nova, played all
Yeah.
of played was the lead person that practiced leads forever. Danny was like just badass and just kind of like, oh, I can do a lead too.
Right.
And so when I wrote that, the guys in the band, that was the first song I wrote where everybody wasn't like, yeah, they were kind of like, huh. I think everybody got a little turned off because I never wrote anything in a major key. And the B section of Beat the Bullet kind of feels a little more majory, So
Hmm.
when it goes, um, you've got temptation in your eyes. Now, that whole part, they go, hey, man, we should maybe lose that part. And I go, oh, no, but that sets the next one up. So everybody wasn't going, this is the greatest song ever for some reason to practice it. So Jamie was all, you can do the lead on that one. So it's just a weird coincidence that ended up being the first single. So, and I think we spent like 10 minutes mixing it because since everything was just coming up on the board, since we did every song,
Right.
the mix was pretty much everything sounded live. We were right there in the same studio mixing all the stuff that we were listening to. And I remember him just going, what are we going to do with this one? And then he just got the two guitar faders and turned them up a little bit more than they usually were. Yeah, that's good. Let's print it. You know what I mean? So the only reason it was so stupid how everything went down, and MTV was so lame back then. Where later the first video, so we
Because they're
ended
cool
up
now.
we yeah no I don't wherever they're gone
I
now,
think we
but
I don't know. Just laughing at. It, but never really
we were supposed
that
to
cool.
we so when we released the video for Beat the Bullet, there were two chicks in the audience and they were rubbing up against each other all, yeah. And they said it looked like lesbianism and that we had to cut that out, which was really funny because they became so pro gay, which is fine with
Right.
me. I am too. And you know, and they even the director of the video hired all these model chicks to walk around the streets. And we can't use any of those people. They didn't look like dressed in rock gear. They didn't even know what it was. You know what I mean? So it delayed the video, and that really freaked Island Records out. So then the next song was supposed to be Thousand Degrees, but since I said two bodies lying naked, they were scared that someone was going to say something about that, which is
You serious?
so that's why they never released it. But it probably didn't matter at that point what they did because the whole thing was just like a sinking ship. But so then instead they switched to
I thought
a bunch.
Icy. That was my song. My first. That was I think my first
A
song I
lot of
heard.
people like that one. Yeah, too.
It was
Yeah, a lot
it
of
was such a story. It just felt like there was such a history to it. There's something like looming over it, like a backstory, and you're sharing something special. There's something about and the emotional. It was of the songs, I mean, it it was almost like a movie in a way. Like that's always the best type of song, anyhow. It's like a soundscape, a videoscape. It felt like it was a story from a movie, and the emotions and the music felt
That's
like it was like
cool.
a soundtrack. But to me, it always felt like one of the heavier songs. Like there's just so much going on. What's going on to Icy? Well, like whatever happened to, like it just felt like so much is going on there. You know that. I think it makes sense why a lot of the fans liked it too.
It's hard to say, which song would have done better. I mean, at one point we didn't even have
Who
records in the
knows?
store, so it
Yeah,
probably didn't matter if we, because when it switched
yeah.
to the other company, you know. But you
I'm just
know,
saying it was a special song. I just thought of the songwriting. That was one of the special things I noticed of the band. Because to me, the layers of the songwriting to me, and it probably wasn't on purpose or anything, but to me, it was reminiscent of songs from the 50s and 60s. Some of the song structures,
of what
where I
song?
think, well, most of your songs, but that
Oh,
one and a couple special songs off that, but almost the way you write, because it feels like some of the things you do are flipped around. Would be a chorus or not a chorus, and the vocal styles and where you sing. To me, it reminds me of the way they used to do songs in the 50s and 60s that were kind of special because you're like, oh, it's a cool song. Or even if you're not into it, you're like, it's in my head. Like, you know what I mean? There's always something special about the way the songs were written.
and I
And
used to
that could just,
listen to a lot of music from those eras too as a kid. When I was playing with Steven, check it out. And it was I was playing the Isley Brothers, and inside the sleeve was all the pictures of them with their zodiac symbols and leather outfits and shit. And then I go, hey man, I know you think I know that you did Appetite for Destruction. You guys are Guns N' Roses. You guys were in the studio being badass. I go, but come on, you got to give it up. Check these fucking guys out. Listen to these tracks. They would make you guys look like a bunch of fucking kids what was going on in their fucking sessions. And he's looking at it, and I thought I was just goading him to see what he'd say. And he goes,
yeah.
"You're fucking right." So, I listen to a lot of that kind of stuff too, and I'm not sure if that influenced me in a different way or something like
But I
that.
mean, you get what I'm saying? I'm not just saying that. I mean, I always felt like, because I always listen to song structure and stuff with bands and artists, and there's just always something different. And for a long time, I couldn't place what it was. And I go through phases where I go back and I listen to certain things on radio, and I've been listening to a lot of 50s and 60s music lately, you know, and just
Me
song
too. Yeah,
structure.
we used to have a joke that Davey should have been a '70s singer. You know what I mean? Like on the
Yeah.
'70s pop stuff. But and then when I started listening to Aerosmith, that's what got me into rock more because I didn't have any
Hmm.
friends that were like rockers as a kid. And then when I got Aerosmith Rocks and I heard that, then it kind of like, that was like, oh my God, that was like, taking all of that stuff and turning it into rock, which was Aerosmith was
Well,
like,
yeah, you had the
so,
guitar, right? But then you have the guitar, but you have these melodies. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe the 50s and 60s had melodies that were really the whole song. And it
yeah.
didn't
And
really
the
matter what else was
verses
in the
were really
background. It could
important
have been somebody
too.
with a triangle for the rest of the song and nothing else. And you're going to remember the song because of that huge hook. And I think you're the king of having these great melodic hooks. And not just the chorus,
Thanks,
you'll
man.
have it in the pre chorus also. No, you're welcome. But you'll have something in the pre chorus. It's almost like you have like a couple different songs layered in there, you know? I could have sat down and probably written them down and figure like what I'm talking about exactly. But there's certain
No, I
things
know
like,
what you're saying.
actually, yeah, yeah,
The
yeah,
song I'm
okay.
working on right now has got a real.
Holding on for love. Actually, you've done that. It's a good example. And I know you've
Which one?
kind of an earlier song, Holding On for Love off the new album, which is
Oh yeah,
also
yeah.
previous. It's a good to kind of bring it
That
back.
was one of the
But
first songs we had, actually. One of the first songs
yeah,
that we had. Then we stopped playing it for some reason. I think it was. I'm not sure why. And then we had a demo of it that was floating around forever. And I've done it a couple of different ways, but and yeah, it's. I've got the song. Sometimes when I do that stuff, then I think, "Ooh, is it too smooth or is this not rock enough?" And I overthink it because the song I'm working on right now, I'm just finishing it up. Has really, you're going to really love the melodies. I love singing this one melody. It's really cool
yeah.
first melody, and I've got it on the board right now, and I think I've got to go listen to it today. It's almost finished, for the new record. But it's funny with Icy. The first tour we went on, we played some pretty shady places and some weird places. Like we were pretty unknown. That was just you have to go out and do it.
Well,
And
yeah,
we played like this military kind of near a military base. So a lot of people like with military haircuts and stuff are shut up. There would be like 5 people standing in front of the stage, and they were the rockers of the town, and they knew, just you can't break if you just go for the rockers. The same with Appetite for Destruction. It didn't do anything for like
right.
a year. You know what I mean? It sold like the mouth at the rock people, but then once they got an MTV, they broke. So we had just started. So we only had
Because
the
why? It's so easy. It was the deeper voice. When you welcome the jungle with the higher voice, that's when people heard it, stood out. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
That was
yeah,
his higher voice.
exactly.
You see?
Exactly. So So there'd be like 5 people, and we'd open with Secrets, and everybody would just stand there. Those kids would be, yay, rock. They heard of us because they followed all the new bands and read the mags and stuff. And everybody else was sitting at tables, and they were just looking at us and like, this is weird. Then we played Icy, and and I used to let the intro go longer, so it'd start like boom,
Yeah.
boom, 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 and I wouldn't do anything. We just and all of a sudden, a bunch of people got up and started like asking chicks to dance. And we had people actually just going, boom. I'm like, what is going on? And so we'd go to the rest of the song and they'd still try to dance for a while. And it happened like 2 nights in a row. And then the next
Wow.
night it started happening again, the same fucking thing. And I went to everybody in the band while they're doing it. We were completely we were like, what is happening? Go, we got us a fucking dance hit. And how can anybody dance to just one note? But it did happen like twice. It was like the puppet show at Spinal Tap.
I think the guitar is so emotive. The riff, that one riff for Icy, it's just so emotive and sad. You know what I mean? It feels like they're like, we're gonna grab it. We gotta dance to something. This is our window. We're gonna dance with a
I
girl.
know.
This is
I
our
like
song.
playing that one. I like playing that one.
You know.
I like to say that song's about a great American girl. I'm singing about a great American girl.
Well, and the thing is, like, with you historically, it's like the other albums that you've done. I mean, obviously, No Check is just a milestone album, but I mean, you have so many other good songs, that are equally as good spread out, you know, and each, all solid albums. Like to me, I think because the newest album you did, Disintegrate. I mean, I think that album could stand back to back, almost song for song, with no respect, as far as I'm concerned. That's the truth.
Oh,
After
thank you.
having a CD for like what, a year now, I don't know how it was, like a year and a half since we spoken last, and having time out and listening to it at different times, really absorbing
Yeah.
it, and then going back and I always play, no respect once in a while, and I'll play your other ones too, and yeah, I just think there's so many good songs on that one too. That one also has so many when there's certain chords, and I've heard the phrase used, and I don't know if I had a relative used to say it's, but like angel chords, that you hear certain frequencies and notes in a song, you're like, oh my God, it's so good, like a good rock song. A lot of rock songs have this angel chords where you're like, yeah, it just feels good inside.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this album has as many, you know, packed in as No Respect. I think that's the only difference between some of your albums is you have a lot of different songs, but your specialty is some of those really powerful angel chord songs and those really emotions that use your voice. I definitely think the new album, well, the newest one, until this new one coming out. So the challenge is there for you now because I definitely, you know,
I
I
know
hadn't felt
it's
that way
tough. That
before.
one's going to be hard to beat. That's
It
I
really
was
is. There's so many good songs on it. I mean, it's top of the line.
Yeah, I'm pretty proud of a lot of the songs in there. I can kind of listen to it now without going, maybe I should have turned that up. Maybe I should have turned that down. Maybe I should have done that. Now I don't really think about it that much.
No,
It's
actually, I
fun.
had to pull up so I could talk about. Because I mean, like, obviously, Colbeck's no, but do you think? I mean, they're keeping an eye on the girl and the flowers. I think "Can't You See Me Floating" has got to be like. I go back and forth. "Can't You See Me Floating" is like one of those beautiful songs. It's probably I'll give you my top five song of any song you've done.
Which song?
"Can't You See Me Floating."
Oh, wow.
Probably the
Okay. Yeah.
I would stack that against almost any song on No Respect
Yeah. I
for
think I
me.
told you last time that one almost didn't make the cut
Well,
because we thought it was
it
a
figures,
little
right?
maybe too, just like kind of the vibe of the trio vibe a little too much. But yeah, no,
Kind of like that.
I'm glad I put it on there. It's just like that one's cool. And
It's a minimalist song in a way that it's so. I think that's the core of right, a good song. Is it seems when you hear it, you're like, oh, this is so easy, I could do it, but it's so hard. Like the Beatles would do songs like that. Like it sounds so easy, and you're gonna play it, you're like, this is so hard to sound good. So when you hear
it's
it, to me, that's the kind of song structure here. Like it sounds like it's so easy, but it's so hard to actually replicate and do it yourself. That's the trick of a good song.
I ended up. It's funny because on that one I played because we have a lot of good guitar tones. Because my guitar player is the owner of Third Power amps. We use those too
Mhm.
on a lot of stuff. But on that particular one, I used my '67 Plexi, like a
Mhm.
really old Marshall. And when I had the mastering guy who's done even like some Led Zeppelin records and stuff, he's done a lot of stuff. He said the guitar tone on the intro, he said that's one of the
Yeah.
best guitar tones I've heard in a long time. And I didn't even really think about it, just sounded like my guitar. But he was the intro, he was mastering that. I was
Hmm.
so into it. So yeah, that one's cool. We actually Eddie Trunk was going, "Oh, can't you see me floating," from the crowd, So that one we haven't tried yet because it's got the two, guitar harmonies too. And most of the time when we're
Right.
practicing, we're only practicing with one guitar player when we're getting ready for, but I think we're going to maybe try that one at the Whiskey.
I think you should.
That
That would
would
be a
be pretty
great
fun.
song. It's a good
Yeah.
song. I mean, it's very different, but it's also it's very vain, but it's also different, which is I think it's the best compliment a band could do, especially this many albums deep in your career, to have an album that can rival. I mean, there's a certain time when a band comes out with the lineup or an album or whatever, and it hits a certain core group for their age group and it's special to them
Yeah.
emotionally, and you can't touch it. It's got nothing to do. Sometimes not even the quality of the band, because some bands have done way better albums than what their famous ones are. You know what I mean? But that core group, and it's just like it's so special and time, and there's all so much other things layered into it.
True.
But
But most,
for yeah, I'm saying, but for most albums, though, like that for years actually the stand-up album, like looking back, still holds its own. But for this point to be writing songs is strong. I mean, that's I think to me an artist, that's what you want to be doing. You know?
thanks. Yeah, that's why we're still doing it because we want to do that. I think if we weren't writing new songs and we were just, trying to play gigs and do stuff like that, I think we wouldn't have as many of the original members anymore. I think
Right.
that's what's keeping like Ash interested is he can keep, writing cool bass lines and, just, that's kind of where everybody's real passion is right now, especially me and
And there
Ash.
is, yeah,
We're
I actually
doing
want to
it
say that
still.
there's some great bass lines in there too, actually. Um,
Yeah, and it's like the way we
they're
play.
like underneath anything too, and it's like the old alternative music. It's like underneath a lot of old alternative music. And I think like earlier we are talking about the bass lines led a lot of the songs. So I love to hear good bass stand alone, you know, because it's kind of
Yeah, and he's
it,
really tries a lot of different stuff these days. It's funny because in no respect, in some ways, some people have the debuts that are just, they're really, smoking. I felt like I was so much better as a singer after I did No Respect, and then I got to go tour, and then I did all those strangers, even though I didn't
right.
really like the way the vocals turned out. And then,
Oh, you didn't? I have to actually pull the title song because
and
you think the
um,
vocals are that great? I thought there's some good ones.
I mean, just the tone of it, I never like. I mean, most people don't notice it as much, but it just, the guy, the way he handled stuff, maybe it's just the way I
Yeah,
did it. I mean, he was firing people while I'm singing and shit like
I thought
that.
the energy was a little different. I think the songs were really good. I just think the energy was different. You
There's
know,
something about since we had a different producer and stuff like that. But by the time we were doing the Road Crew project, I felt like I really, had a lot more experience of,
mhm.
playing live and being a singer for a longer period of time and stuff. But, it's like even Axel could never top, Appetite for Destruction. And he just,
No,
to him, he tried everything he could to bury it. Like, so we're going to bury it.
yeah,
And it's just like, there's something
you
about a
can't.
debut that's like really cool.
Well, see, Van Halen, the same thing. I mean, and that's unfortunately, we spent your whole career trying to get there. That one moment, you know,
Yeah.
and some bands, it's a snapshot of like a real good peak moment, and some bands not so much. Whatever. I mean, you're one of the fortunate bands that you were kind of had a good sound coming out of the gate.
Yeah.
I'm
And
sure as an artist, you're going to perfect yourself. I could like, but by Move It, the energy was there. You know,
and we didn't have a producer trying to like straighten it out. Like we never used click tracks or anything like that.
right.
He even set a couple up just to hear what it sounded like, to sound, perfect tempo and all that. And
Yeah,
it ruined a lot of the songs. And and instead of him going, no, let's do it like that's the way you do it to make sure it's tight. He just let us do it, just let us go and basically do what we did in our shows. We were just so live. I think I told you last time, I would do the jumps at the end. We just performed like we were playing a show.
yeah.
And it's just
Well,
like,
that's who you were, though. I mean, that's how you capture. That's the band that you were, at the
yeah,
time, and you want that in each album. The
yeah.
band who you are now. You know what I
Everything that
mean?
was like all done simultaneously and the push and pull of that and the way we did it was like, everybody was hearing the vocal going down too and stuff like that. So it was, it's good that we kind of knew that it was a special time. So, we didn't take it for granted. We weren't in there just going, let's get this thing done. We were really in there, living it. You know what I mean? So, and like I told you before, we're like out in the middle of nowhere. We were actually on our way to the first we had to fly to Montreal. So that was getting a record deal was kind of almost funner because we went from all living in the city, being broke and, surviving to
Yeah.
like flying all the way to a different country, even though it's Canada, across the country, going to Montreal. And so now we're in this place with this guy we never met before, only on the phone doing pre-production for a few days. Then we drive up to the studio, which is like, 45-minute drive into the mountains. It's like a ski area. There's nothing around. That's why the whole studio you can see out the windows because they had
Okay.
actual. If you watch the Rush Tom Sawyer video, you can see what the
Yep.
studio was. His
Oh, that
drums
was
are
a
set
studio.
up in front of the glass. You can
Yep.
see outside of the studio.
I actually think I was just visualizing that in my head when you talk about that. I didn't know it was a studio though. It's funny. I think of
Yeah,
that is the
it's
ultimate studio.
unfortunately it's gone now, but so we were driving up and then I go, hey, pull the car over, so we all got out and we all got in a huddle and we, hey, listen, man, I don't know what's going to happen, but let's go in and just, we're a bunch of kids from Santa Rosa and now we got, we're going to this legendary place and let's just make sure we're in the moment, get it done. And we're just so psyched up and they'll never be able to take this away from us, and then we're all like, yeah. And then we got in the car, we were so stoked. And then we pulled up. The producer liked to wear these like flight suits and stuff a lot. And then they were standing there with all these platinum records and we're like, oh, wow, it's so fucking cool, And so, even our first tour, and then he ended up being so cool. We used to, do stuff at night afterwards and he would just talk about it. They had it so you could listen to it on the radio. You could play a mix and got to your car and transmit it on the radio station. See what it sounded like in your car and stuff, your mixes. And so we'd listen to it in a car and he'd go, oh, the guy was so enthusiastic. It's so great. And then it's funny because, we'd always did so fascinated and so into all the new stuff. Like the very first tour we went on, my buddy McBob, who's the legendary tech for Duff, and he joined Guns N' Roses as a tech in the eight before they even got a sign, And so
Yeah.
and we kind of grew up together, and we're even roommates for a while, and derelict situations, and so he told, hey, I want some time off because I want to go on Davy's first tour, So he went with us on our first tour and he said the bus is completely sucked, but he didn't want to say anything because we were like, oh, wow, man, this is so cool. It's got bunks and everything. You know what I mean? So he was like, this bus is shitty, but you know what I mean? But we thought we have a tour bus. It's like, that was kind of your dream back then, like getting on a tour bus and just, leaving the world. I mean, it's that even bands get signed now and don't even get a bus. They go, in a van or something. So just having a tour bus felt like we already made it.
Expensive though. It's 1,500
Oh
plus a
yeah,
day
it was so
for a bus.
expensive. We,
No, nowadays
you
it's
owe
stupid.
all that money, but
Yeah.
you don't know when you're a kid. You don't think about it. They're just like, racking up all the money you owe, and it's so. Yeah, it's pretty funny. It's just like taking a spaceship into like the unknown world. It's funny too. We had a thing on it one time. You could change. We looked at it, and the very first night we changed to Aerosmith. When we went to our very first tour, there was like a roll with band names, and one time we put in KC and the Sunshine Band.
Band.
Yeah, it was on there, and people actually thought we were KC and the Sunshine Band. It was
Oh,
really. They came up to us after the show and just started asking us questions. And at first, we were like in a restaurant, a 24-hour restaurant after the show, and we forgot that it was there. And some guy came up and he goes, I used to get down to your music. I'm like, what? What is this guy talking about? And it was like and then we realized, oh my God, they think we're KC and the Sunshine Band. So,
oh, that's awesome.
yeah. So I know it's funny. It's like that's the kind of stuff that you dream about as a kid, is being on a tour bus and never coming back. But you get kind of bummed going back. It's kind of weird too. You could see why people could start really getting loaded, and because it's something kind of strange about it too that I noticed. Because after you play the show, you get all this adulation, and
Mhm.
everybody's so stoked, and you're so high and pumped up, and then you're just out there. And back then it was like a whole other world. If you didn't talk to anybody for a
Right.
few days, nobody thought you were missing or anything. There was no phone calls, no phones, nobody called home, you were just out. And so then you get on the bus and everybody's like, yeah, yeah. And then people are partying, and, and we never went too crazy, as, a lot of people drank a lot, but that was about it. And then, And then all of a sudden, when everything calmed down, and then the bus had to drive 1 billion miles, so we had to leave at a certain time to get to wherever the fuck the next
Right.
sound check was. You're always racing to get to the sound check. Then you finally get there on time, and there's a guy walking around with a cord, like, "Oh, hey, go sit over there," you know. And so, but then after everything's down and you come down from all that, it's kind of a
Mhm.
weird feeling. You know what I mean? You kind of feel like kind of bummed or something because you're just looking out a window and you're riding after you do that a whole bunch of times. And I could see somebody going, "Oh man, I'm maybe just having a few shots, you know, drinking a bunch of
Right. Take
Jack."
yourself down.
Yeah, it's just, but it's funny because I used to drink beers and stuff and party a little bit. And the very
Hmm.
first tour, it was just a coincidence. We had a merchandising deal. So they just have their own merch person come and drive the merch truck and do all the merch truck because all the money goes to that company that gives you the advance, you know?
Okay.
So,
Right.
and yeah, and so, and he was actually a medical student and he was doing this as a summer job. And so I was always worried about my voice and stuff getting messed up. And he goes, "Hey man, if I was you, I wouldn't drink after you're singing anymore." And I go, "Really?" And he goes, "And beer could be really bad." And just, he had some theory about it all, but I kind of believed him. So I even stopped partying a lot just because I was like, oh, okay, you know, if I wouldn't have had him, who knows where it could have gone to, you know what I mean? So I was just like, this guy's at medical school. I'm fucking, you know, so I'm not going to deny his theories on singing, you know. So it was
It
kind of
worked.
interesting. Yeah, he was
That is,
a pretty funny guy. It's funny too because another guy that I play with in my very first band I was telling you about, he was the bass player, right? And he
mhm.
was this construction guy, and I also had him in Vain for the first initial. He was the bass player originally before we played anywhere when I was trying to put the band
Right.
together. And so, and then he was into construction and makes a lot of money and stuff. And then he just said he was in Vicious Rumors for a while too. I don't know if you heard of that band. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
they're a hard band. And he goes,
Oh,
"Man,
yeah.
I can't do this anymore." You know, and Ash was my friend, and I really wanted him to do. And he showed him all the songs, and you know that we were working on at the time. And then he just said, "I'm just going to hang it up. Being in bands, I got to concentrate on my construction and all that." So um, at the end of one of the tours, he lived maybe about a half hour away from where the bus was going to drop us off, maybe a little more. And I told the bus driver, "Is there any way that you can just take me in the bus over to my friend's house?" And he's, "Sure, man." And I go, "Okay." So we drove over there and he's just at his house and he sees this tour bus pull up and he's like, "What the hell?" And I hadn't seen him in months. You know, he comes out, or years maybe, he comes out of the house and I'm going, "Dude, it's me." And he's like, "Fucking A." And he came on the bus and we had a drink. And I just wanted
That's
you to
cool.
check it. Yeah. And he goes, "Dude, I was working and I was listening to radio and I heard a song." And I go, "That's Dave. That's Dave. I know that voice." And then he's just like, and then it was like, and then he goes, "And it was you." And I was like, "Oh, that's so cool, man." So it was, and he didn't take it like, "Oh, I was trying to rub it in" or anything. He knew I just wanted to show him and,
No.
you know,
You're
share. And
excited.
he, yeah, it was really cool though, you know. So that, and he helped me out a bunch of times too when I was going to do some stupid stuff, you know, and, you know, when I was kind of in a crazy time
Crazy
of
young
life.
guy.
Yeah, he could have, where I could have done something really dumb. And he was just like, you know, he was kind of a big dude that could beat you up. So if he said, "If I ever catch you doing that, I'll kick your ass," and you're like, "Oh, okay."
Well, it worked. I mean, obviously you're in a good spot. You know, see, and I think that's the attitude right there. I mean, problem, I think a lot of bands, of course, you party and you chemically you take yourself down because of the energy and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But a lot of the bands would write songs about how bad, how tough their life was on the road, which is always kind of hard as a fan to swallow. Because you're like, yeah, it's not that bad. Like a lot of us are working and stuff. You know what I mean? Whereas you appreciated it and took a different angle with it. You know what I mean? It
Yeah,
didn't come out as being like a complaining situation. Hey,
this is my
actually,
parrot.
what's his name?
Sushi. It's a girl.
He's cute.
"Hey, Sush. Hi, Sush. Hey, hey, baby. Hey, baby." She's not going to say it. That's, she could see you. She knows that you're there.
I thought I thought I saw a bird fly by, but then I thought, am I just
Oh yeah,
crazy?
yeah. She could. That's the only thing she knows how to say is "Hey, baby," and she goes like, "Hey, baby. Hey, baby." That's it. "Hey, baby." That's all she knows how to say. But
How
she's
have you not
actually,
made that part of your songs? You know, I recorded that, I made it a song, "Hey Baby,"
we're
and had that
gonna.
in
I've
there.
only had her for a couple of years. Where I was just talking to Olivia about it, and we probably have her
You just
do "Hey,
have
baby."
to.
When
There's
she
no
comes
way
to
you
the,
can't.
I bring her to this. Look at her. She's bouncing. She knows
See
you're
that?
there. she's she's smart as a dog and smarter in some ways. It's like she knows that you're a person talking to me. Like
Really?
If I
Yep.
FaceTime my wife and she shows her, she'll just start hopping. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hopping. Who's
And
that?
then
Who's that guy? Who is he? Yeah,
check it
she
out.
knows.
He's
Yeah,
cute.
she knows that you're calling or something. Yeah, they're almost too smart. Like if I'm getting ready, she'll hide like on a curtain rod or something because she doesn't want to go
Right.
back in her cage because you don't want to leave them
Ah, no.
out on her own. I take her to the studio sometimes too, and she'll hang out in the control room. If I'm playing a track, she'll start squeaking, getting excited.
Birds are
Yeah.
smart. I used to do reptiles. I worked a pet store, one of my side jobs, and I worked with the reptiles and the birds. A lot of the big birds and parrots and the cockatoos and stuff.
Oh,
They're
that's
so,
cool.
and they were so smart because you close the store and then you let them out of cages, and they come and hang out and climb up you, and they have the free roam because they're so smart. You just didn't want you kept them locked up to protect them from the humans because the humans are the monsters. The animals are the good people.
Did you?
you
Yeah,
know?
you know that vein where we used to be really into reptiles and have a lot of snakes and stuff. Go snake hunting all the time and stuff. I
Oh
even had
yeah.
fans that come visit me years ago, and I'd take them like snake hunting expeditions, and they were all like
Oh
that I
really?
met on the road that were cool guys that helped me out or something. Like then they were like, "Hey, if you ever come into town," they'd call me, and thought we were going to go to all these strip clubs or fucking rock
The
clubs, and I'd
snakes.
take them out to the booties and go snake hunting. Yeah,
I
it's like
I had a couple myself. I had at one point I took in an iguana, tarantula, and then I had a bunch of lizards, and I had some small ball pythons, and then I had a like almost 11 foot red tail boa,
oh,
uh,
cool.
and until it bit me, it attacked me, and then I had to get rid of that. It actually jumped out of the cage. It had gotten sick, and I adopted it from somebody that couldn't have it anymore. And the cage they built, and if you know anything about snakes, the worst thing you can do is they had a plexi container lid that went over it, so you're automatically in a bad position when you open it. The snake's in the perfect position. You're not like getting it at a weak angle. And it was sick. And I unlocked it and I opened it and it had been eaten. It sprung out, and 11 feet is a big snake, heavy, and it shot out and it wrapped around me, put its head, bit my hand, and it was wrapped around my body like that. Good thing my roommate was there. First, we had to separate that, and then you had to unwrap it, tail back. It was horrifying.
Oh
And
my
I love
God.
snakes,
Yeah,
and I was fine with it before that. I was like, that snake's got to go.
we have I used to have a lot of king snakes and different ones from like born in captivity, but I kind of got rid of them all, and then now I kind of don't like put stuff in cages even if it's snakes,
Yeah,
but we used to go snake hunting still and have a contest. You have to catch it and let it go and take a picture. We used to have a
yep.
contest every year to see if you get the best ones, but yeah, so it's fun. I have this shirt called New York Reptilian that I wear way too much. Like I even try to hide it from me because I have so many gigs where I've wore it. They call it my magic New York Reptilian shirt. And it's like that was a place in New York you could get tons of snakes. They even had like
Yeah,
down in the basement, if you were kind of known to them, that'd be cool. They'd show these indigo snakes that weren't even supposed to have. I've had king snakes in there before and had like a chick take it in their broads. The snakes that we have on the beat the bullet video that are crawling on the wall pedal were my
yeah.
snakes too.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, we had to sneak them on the plane. At first, were going to let us, but our tour manager would fuck with people and go, "Oh, they're fake. Indiana Jones, touch it." And the guy go, "Oh, wow." And he goes, "Yeah, I did all the snakes in Indiana Jones too." And then he goes, "Oh, yeah, they look kind of real. I could see they're fake." It was like, Slash used to have all kinds of stuff at his house. I've been to his house.
He did a reptile because I used to get reptile magazines, and I remember he did an article for one of them, and it was a great. I would love to see that magazine again. It was like there's like a great spread of his snakes and stuff. There's a good couple of pages. Do you remember that when it came out? He did a really great thing on the
Yeah,
reptile magazine.
I was at
It was
his
a
first
fantastically
house.
shot. Yeah,
He had stairs that were clear, and then there was a cage like underneath there with big boa. But
nice.
I jammed on some stuff when he did his first solo record. I was at a party for his wedding or something. I played his bachelor party. Vane played his bachelor party at the Troubadour
Wow.
years ago. Yeah, for his first marriage. And then I was at some other thing, and I can't remember what it was for, but it was a different event. And he said, "You know what? I'm going to do a solo record. And I think there's two categories of singers: there's the Robin Zander category or the Steven Tyler category." And he goes, "I kind of put you in the Robin Zander category." And I just, I don't, because you're not screaming, I
Yeah.
guess, I don't know. And he goes, "But and I'm looking for kind of more of a Steven Tyler category. But do you want to come down and just jam on some stuff?" And I go, "Sure." So I went to his house and his engineer had some stuff, and they just ran some tracks. I just made up some stuff along these tracks. It didn't work out. I never even know what it sounded like because I didn't even get to hear it back. It was just like, here's some riffs, and you hear gang, 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 and they just record you while you're making stuff up, you know. But then he showed up afterwards, and he had an actual lion running around in the house, like look, a mountain lion. Yeah, and it was just like my manager.
What?
He came with me, and she goes, check it out. And then we went in there, and it was like a baby one, but it was as big as a dog, you know. And it was looking, and he had a big Hawaiian roadie guy that would always take care of all his pets, you know. And then all of a sudden it just ran towards my manager. He went like that. And it would just pounce a different way. And I was like, holy shit, right? So then he showed up. We're checking that out. He goes, hey, you want to see my snakes? And I go, yeah, yeah. So he had this custom made thing with all these cages, and there were king cobras in there, dude. And they were like, and then I go, wow. And I go, do you have to have those devenom? And he goes, no. I go, really? And I go, hopefully they don't get out of there. He goes, oh, they can't get out. I go, yeah, but this is earthquake country. He kind of looked at me.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he was really into that. I was kind of just into one type. I think he kind of doesn't have them since he has kids and stuff, you know, but I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
I bet you probably doesn't. I mean, I all my animals were rescue. All my reptiles were always, I was always rescuing them because I was so
That's
bad. I
cool.
was so like I had rescued some ball pythons, and they actually got snuck out of their cages. They're small. Trying to get rescue them. I got some turtles, Sal and Manila. Had those wild. Those were the dirtiest animals ever. Turtles.
Oh my God. You know
I think
what?
I had every.
I had turtles that I brought back from Japan. People were giving me, people started finding out that we were into reptiles, and people would bring us stuff to the tour bus.
How'd you get turtles back from Japan? Like needing like quarantined and locked up. That's
Yeah,
harder than bringing drugs.
this is in 1989. They give us stuff, and we just took them on the plane. And then when we got off and we were going through customs, a plane from like the Middle East came in. And I guess back then it was like
Oh
high
yeah, yeah.
security for whatever. I can't remember what country it was. And they just go, yeah, go ahead through. They didn't even check. Unfortunately, I think they got taken out by a raccoon or something because I had them out sunning one day. But it was like, and our one bus driver was terrified because we kept having stuff on the bus. You know, people would bring
Yeah.
us snakes and pets. We didn't even have a horny toad in the back of the lounge, and we tell people, "Hey,
Oh
you want to
really?
see our horny toad?" And they go, "You're the horny toad." I go, "No, we really have a horny
I
toad
have
on
one.
the boat." And his name was Horny, and it was kind of funny. I've told this before, but the only thing that you could feed them are ants, and you have to catch ants, which are really hard. So
Yeah.
they kept the little tissues and our roadies. And when we went across the Canadian border one time, they were searching the whole bus for drugs and stuff. You know, they used to do that back then. And then they were writing all this stuff down, and all of a sudden they're almost done. But then somebody goes, "Look, there's ants." So then everybody's down there looking for ants, and they came up. What do you do? Oh, we're getting ants and stuff for our lizard. And then they
That
searched.
really sounds like you're on drugs. Yeah, that sounds like you really are on drugs, right?
Then they started searching even longer because I thought these guys have got to be high. Like they just thought ants. Yeah,
Just
so
ants.
yeah,
That's all they. I thought they're gonna be like flies too. I figured there'd be a couple different things. The ants was the thing for them.
there are certain ones that's the only way they can get water in their
Oh,
system.
okay. I had a tarantula. Briefly, I had to get rid of it because it creeped me out. But it was part of me rescuing an iguana. Also, that was the deal. You get the iguana. We're named Sailor Ripley after the Wild at Heart movie. But the tarantula came very shortly. But when I had it, have you ever fed a tarantula? You got
No,
we
I'm not a
so we
spider.
would give them. I bought a bunch of crickets, and they stink. Crickets smell, but they would grab it. So this, at least this is the one I had, and would grab the crickets, and then it would because the fangs are like kind of like a hollow, and then kind of use them. We grab them and just suck everything out of them. So these like exoskeletons, all these little
Uh,
corpses.
that's
It was like
creepy.
sucking everything out of them. I'm like, that thing's gotta go. I can't have that in my house. That thing's just freaking me out.
Oh, I know those
I
are
gave it away
freaking.
to somebody else, but it was fascinating to see how they're eating. Just that they were actually eating crickets. I never thought about them eating anything. I just think they were just. I don't know. I
Yeah,
was a reptile guy, not a
that's kind
spider
of
guy.
why I stopped having the snakes too, because then I got a dog. And then one time I
Exactly.
put a mouse in to feed the snakes, and the dog ran up to the cage, and he never paid attention to the cage, but he saw the mouse and was wagging, and he goes, "Oh, he thinks that's a little creature on his level, you know." So just didn't like doing that anymore. The well, we saw a lot of tarantulas and stuff because I was in the Peruvian jungle about a year and a half ago,
Oh
and
wow.
there was a lot of crazy critters out there, man. Giant
Yeah. Well,
otters, monkeys, hundreds of parrots, you know.
that sounds awesome though. I mean, that to me, probably as I get older, that'd be the way to go.
We
That's
went to Machu Picchu first, which is really cool. And then
yeah.
after Machu Picchu, we went back down, and then we flew to the other jungle area of Peru. And then you just take, it's really still too. There's not, you think you see less birds than in a city or something. You're just going down this river. And then when you go to the hot spots, there's just like these clay, big clay formations. And then there's
Mhm.
salt in there. There's certain stuff that they want for them. They know their eggs need it. And there'll be like 150 parrots there, macaws flying over your head. It's just like it's really pretty cool.
Beautiful.
Monkeys all over the place. Piranha. I actually caught a piranha. You could go fishing for piranha. And
I have one. I have a dried one someone gave me as a gift. Those things are
electric
crazy.
eels. Yeah, I know they're pretty weird. When he grabbed it, he got a leash, the tour guy, and then he put the leaf there, and he just got gah, 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 and their like teeth are just like that. They just like a Flintstones, like scissors. He's just going like
Oh,
that.
more
Sean,
next
thanks a
time.
lot, bro.
All
I'll
right,
talk
all
to
right,
you
take
later,
care.
man.
Bye bye.
Cheers.